little ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some Bandlab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out. Kind of.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can stretch. With this AI, like stretching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way. And it's another Thursday.
Thursday already again.
I can hardly see you through all this haze, though. We got so much haze in New Jersey right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
all this smoke.
You guys are right in the line of smoke fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to be all over the place too. I was looking at their updates over there, and it's just crazy at the moment. Crazy stuff going on. But hopefully the air quality will improve over the next couple of days, and people can go back outside, and things will be good.
Yeah. And we've got a special guest tonight who just popped in. Let's see if we can get his camera and audio set up.
Nice.
Uni.
What's
can
happening?
You hear us?
He's working on it.
If you go to the little cogwheel and check your audio settings, make sure your speaker and your microphone are set to the audio devices that you want.
I think we have his page open right here too, don't we?
Yeah, actually, let me bring that up. Tuck ourselves down here.
Nice.
Yes, we've got UnicorMaid Frankenstein, good friend of the family.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about some EQ stuff.
He's the contender for the most forks of mine at this point.
Violating that library, yeah.
No, he's gone through a good chunk of it.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Hey, you put together some good stems there, so no wonder people jump in. And it's always good to hear Uni sing on top of stuff. Good style.
Yeah, and
getting into the EQ stuff later on.
For those of you who aren't familiar with my library, if you go over to my page and you go over to my bands and go way down to the bottom, one of the first bands I made, I have a library called the Phantom Tonis where I reproduce as much as I can when I can. And in here you'll find, all sorts of songs from every genre. I went through a little Tina Turner phase last week, pay tribute.
Right.
And you can find them that way. And if you're something, one thing I always do is I always hashtag the artist that I'm covering. So like, you can hashtag the artist, in this case, like hashtag Tina Turner. You can find them that way. Or you can hashtag karaoke therapy. You'll see everything I do, I hashtag with that. And when you fork them, I think he got his audio working.
Piece by piece, I think I'm getting it going.
You got your sound going. Awesome.
All right. So, hey, you guys are sounding good. Just keep going without me, and I'll just keep getting set up, man.
Cool. We're getting warmed up, and I'm just showing like what my tracks look like for anybody who forks my stuff. I started making stems at the beginning of the year, so now when you want to do one of these tracks, you'll find the stems for each part. There's drums, bass, guitars, And at the bottom, I always put the melodies. You know, for the singers out there, a lot of times you'll want to mute these melodies and put in your own vocals. And
But they're good to have as a guide is the main thing.
yeah, it helps some people with timing. And you'll notice this little blue snowflake looking icon. Uh, that just means that I froze the tracks, and that helps for people who don't have like heavy duty hardware, you know, slower phones. The frozen tracks take less processing power. So if you ever do need to do anything with the track, you can just right click and unfreeze the track, modify the track, and then freeze it again. It'll take less processing power.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's definitely helpful.
you can always find the lyrics. I always put the lyrics in for every song.
It's good to have a process.
And that helps people practice.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to do it. And that way you can get in there. And again, those melody lines, a lot of times it's a matter of going in, and it's good to, you know, once you go through a section, go back and solo those lines, and it can hear where those parts come in or how they fit together and where they fit with the words as well. So you can figure out how to sing the part just from there.
So Uni has had lots of experience with my tracks. At this point, I think he's a pro.
Oh, I muted him.
Hey.
There he is.
All right.
Got the camera going on.
Yeah, we got
Got
a
the best
unicorn in
tracks,
the
man.
house. Well, I love how you've been just kind of like spreading yourself out across genres. Like I know the Zeppelin stuff you're big on, but hitting the pop scene, you did Lord yesterday.
Nice.
Well, it's just fun. You do fun stuff, and then it makes me do fun stuff. It's the best part of Bandlab.
Collaboration.
And that's exactly why I do them, for that kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys can see, you know, he's been a busy boy.
I still have a bunch of yours. I actually put up. I did that Bruce Springsteen one too, and then yeah, there's still more to come. Actually, I got one I was going to drop during the show.
Oh,
Nice.
I still got to check this one with the Blinded by the Light.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah, there's the Lord one.
Yeah, you're on a lot of them lately.
Well, I'm honored.
Yeah. It all works well together.
So what we have tonight, we have a project that we've been testing. Bandlab's gotten some new features. Well, the chat feature is not new, but they've definitely upgraded it, because now it looks like the chat, when you're in the online editor, the chat actually maintains itself and keeps an entire history of the chat. So Uni did some tests, put some test messages in there. I jumped in, responded, didn't even have to save the revision. The chat saves automatically.
Yeah, across all the parts of the project.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is really cool. It helps to keep a history, you know, as you're working on a song. I think more bandlabbers should try this out. It's a good way to collaborate in real time, and you've got reference afterwards to everything that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely seems useful. I even threw in a comment down the end there, and again tested the fact that I didn't have to do a save.
Saw.
Just throw a comment in and then back out, and it's like, all right, let me make sure that's there later, and it is.
I imagined you were singing that, Glenn.
I was, especially when I spell it like that.
Glenn sings everything, didn't you know?
Yep. Just usually just to myself though. A lot of times I'm playing bass, so if I'm playing bass, I have trouble trying to sing at the same time. But I will say I'm getting better at it, as far as I'm starting to be able to like let my lips move while I'm playing. That was the kind of what was stopping me before, using too much brain power on the fingers and not being able to separate that from the vocal parts.
It's the magic of recording, though. You're the wizard of time and space.
Exactly. Do each part separately. And that's where some of them, There's a couple of them. One is a Fish song that I'm going to cover that I was going to do with one of my bands as well, and it has 4-part vocal harmony. And just to get those parts down, I was thinking about just going through and just doing all 4 parts myself, just to because I can definitely do the low part, because that's the part that's usually my part anyway. But and I can definitely do the main part, because that's the part that I usually hear when I'm listening through the song. But to get those other 2 parts down, that's going to be the tricky part. So I look forward to working on it some and trying to get those parts down just as practice. And obviously I can't sing 4 parts by myself live, so I wouldn't be doing it for a live thing, but just more for practice and for how to get those parts together for the people who are going to be doing them live. We had talked about doing the song once, but we talked about it one time, and then months later we're on stage and the guitar player's like, hey, let's do that song. And I'm like, that's like, it's 4-part harmonies. We've literally never done it once in practice. We talked about it once, people listened to it once, but it's like, no, we got to actually work on that together, and then we can do it on stage. Let's not do it the first time together on stage, because that's just a train wreck waiting to happen. But fun anyway.
Now, we'd been talking about EQ in some of our episodes in the last couple of weeks, and that's kind of what led us to this this project idea, where what Uni did was put together kind of an EQ template and set it up as a Bandlab preset. Now, I had never used the Bandlab presets before. This is kind of new to me, and the whole idea of being able to share your presets, that's really cool. I actually was searching around on YouTube to see if there was any tutorials on setting up the presets. Strangely enough, there isn't. There's tons of YouTube videos on presets people have made, but I couldn't find anything giving a good tutorial on how to share your presets. So we're going to actually take a look at some of this, and we're going to take a look at the preset that Uni did to basically set up his EQ.
Were you able to check out the Hardcore Studios video that I sent you?
The link that you gave me last week, right?
Yeah.
Where did I bookmark that?
Just because I think that guy gives a really great explanation of how to make vocals punch through a mix and how to use EQ to do that. And then the preset I made emulates what he did for people using Bandlab stuff.
Mm-hmm. So this actually takes that approach, the way that you use.
Yeah. So if we were able to watch his video and then follow along on my thing, I think it might even make more sense.
Now, when you picked the ranges for those mid sweeps, did you pick specifically for your voice, or were those just for voice in general?
So what's really cool about the way this guy set it up is he says to make stuff cut through, you're not looking for the sweet spot of somebody's voice, but rather how a human ear detects sound. And so almost like a telephone, you know how your phone seems to accentuate certain frequencies?
Sure.
If it's not cutting through, then he's saying, hey, you probably want to turn up at 1K specifically. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool how it works, but he explains it way better than I just did.
Right. And one thing that's also cool is just not being afraid to mess around with it. Like having these 3 separate ones set up already, you can just sit there and just dial one up or down, dial the next one up or down, dial the third one up or down, and you can really see real time how, because you can go, anytime I'm trying to dial in an effect, I'm always going to try to dial in too much and then not enough, and then try to kind of back and forth it to where it feels like it's in the right spot. So it's good to have that flexibility. And by having the 3 separate ones, you're able to then do that without having to mess around with where the mid sweep is set and having to dial that in.
Exactly. And then weirdly, by hearing what makes it cut through my recordings, I'm like better able to aim at that, if that makes sense.
Sure,
so I don't have to use
getting attuned to that spot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what to listen for before. And then after doing some of these exercises, it started being, oh yeah. And my recordings are changing a little bit.
Yeah, nice.
Is that the one that if you nail the mid range, you nail the mix?
I think there's 4 magic frequencies for vocals.
Let me see.
I think he's trying to figure out what the title was to be able to locate there. I know we have some that are already lined up for today, and I'm looking through those, but I don't think that was one of them. But I know we have one that was
magic frequencies for mixing electric guitar.
He's got magic frequencies for everything. This one's for vocals. It probably is similar.
Mm-hmm. You remember who it was by again?
It's by Hardcore
Studios.
Music Studios. I could look it up real quick.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure if in this environment I can send. Oh, there is a private chat here. Nice.
Oh yeah. All the good stuff.
Yeah,
Now,
he
Tony,
really,
if you were to,
he really does have a lot of shit on EQ mixing. This
if you were to
guy's a
show the effects
master.
chain on the voice there, just to show the 3 pedals
Yeah.
with the mid range there, we can just even
four magic frequencies for mixing vocals. I think
That's
that
it.
sounds right. That sounds right.
All right, I'm gonna throw this just because you have a little better of a connection, Glenn. If you can get that loaded.
Yeah, and in the meantime, open up that effect chain there, and we can take a look at how the what that looks like with the 3 separate mid sweeps there, and the ranges, or the frequencies, I should say, that he has set for where the mid sweep is. You can see on the dial that one is towards the middle, one is more than the middle, and one is like way more than the middle. So you can get an idea.
Yeah.
Of
So in particular, those EQ 3Ms. Yeah. So down at the bottom, that first one should be at 8K.
Yep.
And then the next one I think is like, I want to say like 4,500.
Yep, 4,500.
And then the next one is 1,000. And so I mean, you can hear it in my thing. We can do the video. If you play the song as is, you'll hear kind of a dark vocal. And if you start playing with just those mid knobs, say one at a time, start with that one that does 1K and just hear what it does. We got to play the track.
Oh yeah.
All right, now keep
And
our
that's the
fingers
question.
crossed that my audio. Yeah, because I don't think I'm sharing audio on this.
Oh, right on.
Screen share. But I will fix that. I may loop. we will see what happens.
Indeed. That machine just kicked out, but we'll get it back as he goes to share sound. Liking the mask though, it's a good angle for you. Get the full unihorn in there. Well framed.
There we go. Okay, so let's see if we loop. Check. All right, I think we're good.
Sounds good.
It's still.
I hear myself. We're gonna loop.
So what we're gonna do while I play is I'll mute everybody except for that one screen. That way we can listen, do it, and then we'll unmute after.
Sweet.
It's my favorite of the year. Santa baby, slip some sable under the tree for me. I've been an awful good girl, Santa baby. Hurry down the chimney tonight. Santa baby, and out of...
And you can definitely, especially when it becomes too much.
Oh yeah, and it brings up the reverb along with it.
Sure.
It seems like. Now that's at the 1300 frequency. Let's see what it does on the 45. We'll reset that.
It's my favorite of the year. Santa baby, slip some sable under the tree for me. I've been an awful good girl, Santa baby. Hurry down the chimney tonight. Santa baby, an out of space convertible to light blue. I will wait up for you, dear Santa.
Oh, it starts to, it's really dark and it cuts in.
Now that one really does have a nice subtle effect in the middle there.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, I felt like the sweet spot was like somewhere right around here where you get a nice balance. We've also got the 8,000. Let's try that
And
one.
I always using them all. So
And you just kind of massage them till it sounds the way you want, right?
yeah. Well, sometimes it turns out you want to go to the other track and massage it a little bit instead. It's weird. They kind of rub off on each other.
Harmonic resonance. That's actually going to be a big topic we're going to be talking about later. Let's see what it sounds like on the 8,000.
Oh, it's my favorite time of the year. Santa baby, slip some sable under the tree for me. I've been an awful good girl, Santa baby. Hurry down the chimney tonight. Santa baby, an out of space convertible to light blue. I will wait up for you, dear Santa baby. Hurry down the chimney tonight.
I'm just dancing.
Yeah, with the 8,000 and the 1,300. Oh, yeah, smart Glenn. Mute the screen share. Now we're muting the other side.
Yeah.
With the 1,300 and with the 8,000, it's more subtle, and like I feel like the sweet spot with the 8,000 is somewheres in this range where you get the nice balance. With
Yeah,
the
the 8,000 feels like more of the sizzle.
yeah, and with the mids here, it's a little more in this range.
And then what happens is because you're bumping all those frequencies up, you're starting to go in the red line. So that's what that compressor is for.
Mm-hmm.
So as you start redlining, you bring the compressor in and it holds all those peaks back down. So you get all that nice extra high end sound, but you don't go over.
Right.
You adjust the gain on the compressor.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where you can balance it back out.
Yeah, it's set up at a good spot for jumping in. It depends. I mean, one of the crazy things, they say presets, but it totally depends on how hot your signal is coming into the effect.
Oh,
presets are a
and
good starting point. Yeah.
That's why the reverb comes in more as we go, because it's at the end of the chain.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah. So you guys have turned them. That means you've been playing around with it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
yeah. I set it up initially as like if you were to reload it, everything's at 0.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that happens, you notice at the beginning there's a noise gate. Mm-hmm. And what starts happening is as we're turning up all those frequencies, the noise lives there.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I turn on the noise gate. I think it makes sense to do your noise gating as early in your signal chain as you can.
I agree.
Because that's where the biggest difference between the noise and the signal is.
Right. Yeah. And that way you're also not amplifying bad stuff. You're trying to get all the bad stuff out before you get to anything that's going to be pushing up more.
Yeah,
Exactamundo.
Otherwise, you're EQing the noise too.
Right.
Some people talk about doing the same with a de-esser if they need a de-esser, keeping it also early in the chain for the same reason. Try to pull some of that sibilance out.
This is pretty intuitive the way Bandlab has this with the noise gate. You just slide it up and down.
You can use it for an effect to shape your sound, but I mean, if you're just using stuff like in a normal way, I think some of those things like to be early in the signal chain.
Well, you're using it to bring out any room noise, mic noise that you just don't need.
It starts kind of hissing a lot when you turn up. Those frequencies are like that dead space sound. So it's nice to knock it out and only have it underneath, the vocal itself.
That's also where we did that subtractive EQ before. But that would be taking it out into Cakewalk and then doing the subtractive EQ on it and then bringing it back over.
The only reason I did this, I mean, I could do this a bunch of other ways, but I like working in the Bandlab editor or Bandlab studio because so many of my friends online are doing it in the Bandlab studio.
Yep.
And sometimes people tell me you can't get good results. And so it's just, I don't know, it's nice to, it's not about the equipment, it's about your ears.
Exactly. It's about your ears, and it's about what you do with the tools that you have. You know, make the best use you can of the tools that you have. And you know, Cakewalk is perfectly fine. Bandlab editor is perfectly fine. I use the Bandlab editor all the time, also, just to get ideas out, just to work with ideas with other bandmates, because we have we're all there, so we can just take a studio session where we rehearsed 4 or 5 different songs, and we keep it to a 15-minute chunk. So we'll get a few songs in on a rehearsal day, and then we'll upload it to Bandlab, and then we can go through and cut the parts up and actually go back and have them as practice material at home. So it's good for that as well. Those aren't usually published at all. That's just to have.
So I was definitely going to go ahead and then at during the show or at the end of the show, go ahead and push this out. You guys are welcome to push it out if people are interested in trying it.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and if
definitely
we,
like it.
And it's just got over in that 3 dot area over to the left.
Mhm.
I think it's got a share. Oh, maybe it's
Share
the
right
arrow.
next to it. Yeah.
yep. This, if we wanted to share the preset, what we can do is click this, and I gave it a name, I gave it a description, save and continue, and it generates a link, or I can share it directly to a post. Which, let's see, I'll do it right now.
There you go. Putting it on out there because it is good information, and it is, as you said, it's a good starting place. It's not like the magic here you drop this in and everything's fixed. It's you drop this in and you can start playing with it and see how these frequencies affect your voice in that song, because everything, as you said, every song is going to be different. There'll be different amounts of room noise or whatever kinds of noise in whatever recordings you're doing. Different voices have different sweet spots, so they'll be affected more by certain ranges. I'm like, you and I are deeper voices, but there are a lot of people out there with higher voices that will be affected by the ranges differently.
Well, that's a thing that I thought, because I have a deeper voice, especially when I'm singing, that I might have to, find those frequencies. But what was interesting about what this guy at Hardcore Music Studios was saying is, like if you have a deeper voice, you might need to boost these specific frequencies extra,
Yeah,
to get get that kind of punch.
Yeah, because you don't have as much signal in that range. You're putting more energy
Exactly.
on the lower end.
And that's like, I guess all the instruments are essentially fighting for a small group of space in the middle of the range.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's where the style of music depends a lot as well. Some songs have a lot of space to them. Some songs are just filled with, double kicks and all kinds of stuff going on. And, it depends on what you're working on, whether you'll be able to get good value from these particular ranges. But it's always good to mess with it and see how it affects your voice and what works best for that particular style.
And what's really cool is they even let you share it with a basic link. Like I just posted it to my wall, but if I copy that link, bring up another tab here, actually just paste it right in.
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
The old partial link.
Yeah, just using that link imports it right into my presets.
Mm-hmm. Just like that.
Yeah, I think the whole Bandlab interface, although there's been a little bit of quirkiness, I have also seen a bunch of improvements.
Well, they have done some great improvements this year, for sure.
Absolutely.
The chat's getting better too. Like the chat for the collabing, retaining that information. They didn't do that originally.
Right.
Yep. It was a good addition. I haven't seen that much use for it yet, but we did have some good use for it right there, testing it out.
Exactly. Well, we can see. All right. Well, that's really it for me. Hey, I do have another song that I did with you, Tonis, that I'm gonna drop out during this show.
Nice.
And awesome. It'll just be, I'll put it on my wall, and I'll just probably post in the chat that I've posted it if people want to check it out. Maybe I'll do it towards the end so people don't jump off your thing.
I appreciate that.
And you all should be checking out UMF Music on Bandlab.
Always welcome to join us, man.
All right, man. Well, I'm like addicted to doing covers right now. It's been, I don't know, I've just been having a lot of fun trying out everybody else's voice. So
it's a lot of fun. It's great training, and you can learn a lot about, different vocal techniques and everything just by trying to copy things like that. So it is definitely worthwhile.
Oh, and I love the style you bring to every song. You bring yourself to it, which is
Absolutely.
how to cover a song.
Well, there's a lot of me, so
Excellent.
He's a magical unicorn.
all right.
Yep.
Well, have a great rest of your show, guys, and I'll be chatting away in the background. It's been great for you to let me on. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank
Very
you
cool,
for
man.
stopping
Anytime.
by.
Yeah. Thank you. We had some other things we were going to do with the EQs as well. We had a couple for EQ. Let's see. We had one for a mixer that we were looking at there, and we had, where we go there. That's what we're looking for.
There we go.
Or go back right there. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I got some news this morning. More Bandlab news that really came out of nowheres for me. But I was watching Mike over at Creative Sauce. He streamed yesterday, and when I saw the title, I started wondering why he would be mentioning Cakewalk the Future and him, because he's a big Cakewalk guy. When I came back to Cakewalk about 3 years ago, when I came on to Bandlab, he was my go-to for all the Cakewalk tricks. He's got the best videos out there to get comfortable with Cakewalk. And I guess he had heard that Bandlab is going to be discontinuing the free Cakewalk that we've had, for all these years, and that Cakewalk's not going away, but it's being converted back over to a commercial product, and they're actually making two different versions. The light version kind of looks like Bandlab. Takes the same simplistic approach, not really designed for heavy duty production. And then the big version, we're going back to the Sonar name, which is what Cakewalk was called before it became Cakewalk for Bandlab.
Right.
And it's a little distressing for me. I mean, one of the reasons why I came back to Cakewalk, because I started with Cakewalk in '89 all the way up until the early 2000s, and I switched over to Cubase because back then VSTs, VST2 especially, Cakewalk was all DAWs were a little flaky with VST2, except for Cubase. Steinberg invented the VST protocol, and Cubase was the king at VST support back then. So I spent a decade with Cubase and then took a couple of years off, came back, saw that Cakewalk was now free with Bandlab, and instead of going back to Cubase, I jumped into Cakewalk full force. Now I have thousands and thousands of projects in Cakewalk. So when I heard this, I was a little thrown off, like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all these projects? I'm going to have to keep a copy of Cakewalk around, or, depending on what they do with it, migrate to the new Sonar. And there's a good chance I probably will stay with Cakewalk, but it got me thinking. And some of the videos that we have, we've got two of them from a new channel. We've got a couple of killer new channels again tonight, Glenn. Audio Tech TV was going through. This is a phenomenal YouTube channel. He's got stuff on everything. And at Audio Tech TV on YouTube. And he goes into, what's going on with this new Cakewalk. And we've also got one on the best DAWs in 2023 to consider. And given this news, I kind of had to see what's going on in 2023 for DAWs, because it's a big jump.
Might as well title this one "Don't Panic About Cakewalk" if it isn't great anymore.
Yeah.
But good channel there, yeah. I think that's a new one for me as well, so I'll be adding that to my collection.
Oh yeah, you're gonna love the stuff he's got in his. But let's take a look at this one so we get a better idea of what Bandlab's going to be doing with it. It's not the end of Cakewalk, but it is going to be a change.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is
So many questions and very few answers at the moment, but Bandlab have announced that they're going to be phasing out the free Cakewalk by Bandlab DAW, and they're replacing it with 2 new products. And one of these is bringing back the old Sonar name, which Cakewalk by Bandlab used to be called. And the other one is going to be called Cakewalk Next. So let's have a look at both of these programs and we'll see why I think one of them might be a little bit of a disappointment. But who are each one of these geared toward? What might they cost? And what does this mean to the future of these DAWs and other DAWs in general? So you can see on the website, there's the 2 new products that are coming soon. Let's start with Cakewalk Next. So right away on this page, you can see a bit of a screenshot of Cakewalk Next, and it kind of looks like a slicker version of the Bandlab DAW, which is cloud-based. But I'm really hoping that this is going to be on your computer and not a cloud-based program. And there is a reason why I think this is going to be a program on your computer and not cloud-based. So we'll look at that in just a bit. But it does look like it might have a nice modern workflow to it. And if we scroll down here, it says the newest addition to Cakewalk Next offers easy to use yet powerful tools for creators of all stages. And you can see you can also request early access to test this out if you want. So let's look down here. It says cross-platform compatibility. Next is available on both Mac and Windows. Now, if this was a cloud-based program, it would be available on everything, but they're specifically saying Mac and Windows, which makes me think that this is going to be a program that you install on your computer. Now, here we have ease of accessibility. So no matter your level of expertise, we understand your evolving needs and meet you where you are. So it sounds like it's going to be easy for beginners to get into this, which Bandlab, the online version, is easy to get started with. And if this is sort of an extension of that, I can see how this is going to be easy for users. But if you are getting more advanced and the more you grow, this program should grow with you and your skills. And over here we have Bandlab connectivity. So publish your tracks to Bandlab and access its diverse library of royalty-free sounds and samples. And they've really been pushing their Bandlab community lately, so I can see that this is going to be very much a big part of that community. And then down here we have some more images of Cakewalk Next. It says less work, more flow. Turning your dream song into reality should be easy. Again, making it sound like it's going to be easy for beginners to get started with it. And it looks like you're going to be able to edit lyrics and synchronize them with your song's timeline. So that's pretty cool. Access unlimited samples, which you can do in Bandlab, and then customize your sound, easily shape unique sounds with beats and sampler and pad controller features, plus experience fluid integration, browse and tag your favorite AU and VST plugins for seamless access. And then down here, you can see they have some frequently asked questions, a couple that are to do with the beta testing, but is Next replacing Cakewalk by Bandlab? So that's an interesting question right there. No, Next is Cakewalk's newest innovation, empowering creators with accessible next-gen music creation tools to speed up song making. We will continue providing community support and maintenance for Cakewalk by Bandlab until both Cakewalk Next and Sonar become publicly available. And at some point after the release of Next and Sonar, Cakewalk by Bandlab will no longer be supported. Existing Cakewalk by Bandlab users will be able to continue using their software after the release of Sonar, but in the meantime, Cakewalk by Bandlab continues to be available here. Now, here's another big question that a lot of people will have. Will Next and Sonar be free like Cakewalk by Bandlab? Next and Sonar will be offered at price points designed to meet the needs of different customers. More information will be provided as we approach the launch date for these new products. So it sounds like there's going to be a price for both, which I can appreciate because they need to pay the bills over there and they just got a ton of investment money. So they got to show their investors that it's worth investing in something that's not just giving everything away. Now, having said that, I do have a feeling of how they're going to price Cakewalk Next, at least. And I have a feeling it's going to be through a membership or a subscription type of thing, because they've really been pushing memberships on the Bandlab community platform that they have. And in the perks that you get with those memberships, it does say that there's more things coming soon, which could be this as a more thing that's coming soon. Will it be subscription or membership based only? I don't know, but I do have a feeling that it's going to be included with the membership on the Bandlab community. I really hope that it's not only a subscription based thing, because I think that's going to turn a lot of new users off, and there will be people that find use in this subscription model. I'm not saying that subscriptions are bad. I just know a lot of people hate them. Now let's have a look at what they're saying about the new Sonar DAW. So right away, when you click into this page, you'll notice that Sonar looks identical to what we have right now with Cakewalk by Bandlab. And they're saying this is the ultimate music production package for creative minds. So obviously this is the more advanced DAW for more pro users or people who are used to working with Cakewalk by Bandlab or Cakewalk or the former Sonar Platinum. This is going to be for those people. And they do say that you'll be able to open your old Sonar Platinum project files and your Cakewalk by Bandlab project files in this new version. So let's see what else we've got going on here. It says Sonar will bear an exciting new visual identity while retaining its existing workflows. This name change reflects our continued commitment to serving core audio production needs and providing the best all-around audio solution for Windows. So one thing in here that's a little bit of a disappointment to me is retaining its existing workflows. Cakewalk by Bandlab is a huge, impressive program. It's full of pro features and all of that stuff. I'm not knocking Cakewalk by Bandlab. I use it and I do like the program, but the one thing I really wish it had was a more modern workflow, a more improved workflow. And it says that they're going to be retaining its existing workflows. So that's a little bit of a disappointment to me, because I would have liked to see them take Sonar or Cakewalk, whatever you want to call it, and bring it up to a more modern level that's in line with other DAWs that are available out there. It just kind of sounds like they're making it look nicer, giving it a little bit better graphics, but not modernizing that workflow. Maybe that will come eventually, but right now it just sounds like they're updating the graphics really. And will installing Cakewalk Sonar overwrite Cakewalk by Bandlab? No, the two applications installed at different locations on your file system so they can coexist on your computer. So what might this all mean to other digital audio workstations? Well, it's going to depend on what the price point is for each of these. I think that if there is a cost at all, if whatever it is, that we're going to see programs like Traction Waveform Free get a bit of an increase in the user base that they have. And that's an excellent program too, because it's unlimited and it's got a more modern workflow to it, and you can still do everything that you want in a modern DAW. But not everybody might go to a free DAW. They might start to explore other paid DAWs as well, because now if they're asking for money for this program, most people, I think, will shop around. They'll say, well, this costs this much. What other programs cost this much? And they might shop around to see what else is out there. And again, it depends on what the price point of this is, but I'm sure people are going to compare and see what's available at the same price point. So we could see user bases increase on other DAWs as well, not just the free ones. And if you're thinking that you might replace Cakewalk by Bandlab once they start charging money for it, click the video on the screen to see some of the best DAWs that are available for Windows right now. And these include free digital audio workstations or paid ones. And if you liked this video that you're watching right now, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating. Fist bump. Thumbs up.
Hell
right.
yeah, Zane.
Very good.
Digging his channel.
Yep. Good stuff.
And I did exactly what he said. I clicked on that video, and that's the one we're going to be looking at next, because if you're gonna switch your DAW, it can be a big move.
Yeah. One thing I will say about workflow or maintaining workflow, from some angles, some people would see that as a benefit as far as a learning curve thing, where if you are familiar with the workflow currently, it's a familiar feeling workflow in the new thing. What I'd like to see is, again, if he's talking about new functionality and new features and all of that, even if it is a similar workflow, but being able to do new things, but not leaving people behind where they're too confused when they jump in, but they're able to just jump in and, you know, utilize the new features or functions that are there. Because, you know, and again, that's where it's fun to just jump in and play with stuff. So you just jump in, you know, throw something on there, say, hey, let's try this, let's try that. And you've got to be willing to experiment with things. And I like
Well, and when you look at these two new products that they're targeting, you know, the Cakewalk Next product looks like they're catering to more of the like Bandlab users, where
Yeah.
it's got a simpler approach, less of a learning curve, and focused more on just making the music.
Yeah. Try to
And
you know, make it just a tool and get it out of your way is the idea. Yeah.
yeah, and you know they're going to continue with the Cakewalk engine,
Mhm.
bringing it back over to Sonar, and that one I suspect you'll see more of a set price. It'll be
Mhm.
more like Cubase and the others where you pay for it and you use it until there's a new version to buy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The other point that he made about, you know, if there is a cost associated all of a sudden, then people who have been happy with the free product would probably be, you know, more willing to shop around for other paid products as well,
Yeah,
or
and
other free products. So that's what we're
I
going to
w-
find about next is the
I
free
w-
products. But yeah,
I would not be surprised if the next becomes included with the you know, the Bandlab membership that
right.
they're now promoting.
Yeah,
That that
exactly.
that actually gives that subscription more value. Like right
Mhm.
now, I'm hesitant to spend $150 a year just to boost my profile. Sorry, Bandlab, but that by itself is not enough for me to want to spend $150 a year.
Mhm.
But add a product like that, now we're talking. Like now you are giving some value to that subscription.
Mhm.
And that's what they need to find. They need to find that healthy balance of value added service,
Right.
which they have. You know, the collaboration and the features that you get through Bandlab and currently with Cakewalk. Cakewalk integrates with your Bandlab projects. That's a value. That's a
Mhm.
service.
Yeah. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I like using it, and that's the thing is, I am on board with them, you know, getting, you know, a paid product out of this, or whether it's, you know, all of that. But again, I would hesitate if it was getting rid of entirely the free products. You know, like I
Yeah.
still do like the free products, both for getting people started. That's one of the big things is, you know, having some products you can, you know, suggest 2 or 3 different free products to somebody, which again, we'll talk about a couple different ones in this next video. But there's also, you know, currently we would tell people, oh, Bandlab and or Cakewalk, and start with that so that you can get in there and get familiar with what you'll see in a DAW and what you'll see when you're, you know, trying to record stuff and get somebody just off the ground.
Yeah. And you know, for me, the primary reason why I've stayed with Cakewalk is because when it comes to my keyboards, Cakewalk's instrument definition files,
Mhm.
my keyboard, Cakewalk recognizes I have
Mhm.
instrument files. I can pick my presets from Cakewalk and it talks to my keyboard and it knows what sounds I have. I can do it all from Cakewalk.
Mhm.
I've tried the other DAWs. They don't have that MIDI integration that I get from Cakewalk. So I'm really inclined to stay with Sonar for
Yeah.
that reason.
Mm-hmm. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, those of you who aren't dealing with synthesizers, you know, if you're just putting some guitar or vocals in, really won't matter which DAW you use. You just want to use a DAW that's easy to learn, that you're comfortable with. The workflow that he's talking about, another thing that Cakewalk was always good about, Cakewalk has workspaces. I
Mhm.
hope as they evolve Sonar, they don't cut that off, because I've spent years setting up my workspace to the way I like it and customizing it. It would suck to have to start all over.
Yeah. And I don't think it would be radically different, even if it was different. So yeah, there is that. But and
Well,
that
a lot of it is UI customization, like where you want your information to be on the screen.
yeah.
You know,
And
it's
that's where
nothing
you're working with a
drastic.
bunch of working with a bunch of different DAWs, the more you work with a couple of different ones, and even if you don't work with them heavily, just getting in there and getting familiar with them, whether, especially just watching someone who has a good workflow, like we've said many times about, Jason with Reaper.
Look at Jason.
you just like,
the
look at one
ultimate
example there.
workflow.
Yeah, and it's just all, that's a great example of, if you just look over someone's shoulder as they're just doing stuff in a DAW, are they struggling with it? Are they having problems? Are they able to just jump right in and do this, do that? Are the tools in the way, or are the tools helping them get their ideas out? That's the main thing, because as long as the tools are helping, that's great. But if the tools are getting in the way, it's a question of how can you streamline that, because you just want to get it where you have an idea, you're able to just basically jump in, hit a couple things, and boom, go, and get at least something down, get the idea down.
Yeah, which
you
gives
can always go back and refine later.
Which one gives you the path of least resistance to the music?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where, whether it's even just that little hand recorder, record into your phone. I've done that kind of thing before as well. Yeah, let's go show the full screen on this one. So this is going to be
So now that we know what's going on with Cakewalk, and what DAW would be a good consideration in 2023, he's got the best video so far for 2023 on DAWs out there. I scoured and looked all over, and I had to do a double header with this one. His channel's that good.
Nice.
We've been on a roll. Like every week there's been at least one where it's like it's like Lay's potato chips. I can't eat just one.
yeah. And actually I have a couple in reserve that we haven't even talked about yet that we could talk about later if we have time, or they'll be next week. But that's another new one that I like. So at least one new one, if not two.
They're in waiting.
On a roll. That might actually be from 2 weeks from now, because actually next week I might have to not be here. So we'll double check. I may or may not. Gotta see. But for the moment, we're going to go into best free DAWs for Windows 2023.
Yeah, this one is.
Want to make music and maybe even release it, but money's a little tight right now, or maybe you just want to save your money. Lucky for you, there are quite a few free DAWs for Windows available in 2023. So let's check them out, and be sure to stick around to near the end. I've got a couple of bonuses on there, plus some advice on choosing the right program for you. Now, first up on the list is the recently revamped Avid Pro Tools Intro. Yes, this is the same Pro Tools that you may have heard big artists talk about using. It's the same core program, so you get the Pro Tools workflow, some of the core plugins that have been heard on hundreds of hit songs, and you can also bring in your own third-party plugins that you might grab for free or pay for. There are some limitations to Pro Tools Intro. You can only have 8 audio tracks, 8 instrument tracks, these are for the virtual instruments, 8 MIDI tracks, and 4 aux tracks. I create straightforward rock music most of the time, and this works for me. But if you want to make some big, complex songs and you still want to work with Pro Tools, the bigger options start at just $10 per month. But if you're just starting out and you want to see what all the fuss is about with Pro Tools, give Pro Tools Intro a try. So from a music making program with limitations, we'll go to one without limitations. This is Cakewalk by Bandlab. If you aren't familiar with Cakewalk, it's been around for a long time. I remember using it back in the 90s. This version that's now free was formerly known as Sonar Platinum, and this was the higher end version of Cakewalk. And it used to have a premium price tag attached. Bandlab purchased the company, and they've now made this incredible DAW available to everyone for free. There's no upsells or anything like that. You're getting the top tier program. It comes with some excellent effects, including the TH3 guitar amp sim from Overloud. Also, every track has the Pro Channel strip on it that gives it the old console style workflow. You can also bring in third-party VST plugins if you want to add more instruments and effects. And if you like the idea of Ableton Live Session View Clip Launcher, Cakewalk has a similar feature built in, and it's called the Matrix View. So it can be great for beat makers and electronic music creators, along with any genre of music. Another free digital audio workstation with no limitations is Traction Waveform Free. And you can do everything you need: record, edit, mix, program MIDI, whatever it is, you can do it all without changing views. It's all available to you right from this one screen. The mixer section is modular, so you can move anything around, including the faders and meters, so you can have effects before and after the faders if you like. And all of your mixing can be done right over to the side of the track, or if you need a more traditional mixer look, you can have the console at the bottom of the screen. The The workflow of Waveform Free helps to make the music making and mixing process very fast while not getting in your way. You can have unlimited tracks and bring in your own third-party plugins if you like. It's not limiting at all. There is a pro version of this one, and that includes some added instruments and effects, plus some time-saving features, but not having any of those isn't going to limit you at all. They're just nice extras to have. The core program is exactly the same between the Pro and the free versions. I use Traction Waveform all the time. If you watch this channel, you'll see it quite a bit, and I never find Waveform to be limiting at all. I just love the speedy workflow. Another music making program with a modern speedy workflow is PreSonus Studio One. Now the free version is called Studio One Prime, and this allows you to have as many tracks as you need, and it comes with some excellent effects including the Ampire guitar amp sim, and that sounds great. Plus you also get the Presence XT sample player instrument, and that has tons of sounds in it. You basically get everything you need to record and mix your tracks, which is good because one big limitation is that you can't bring in any third-party plugins. So what you get with the free version is what you're stuck with, unless you want to upgrade to the next version, which is called Studio One Artist, and that's $99. The workflow of PreSonus Studio One is very quick. It gives you easy access to everything that you need without having to click around too much or switch screens. So you can focus on making music, which is what this is all about. Over the last few months, I've really been getting into the latest version of Studio One, and I love it. Definitely give this one a try. Now let's check out a program that's a little different from the previous ones that we looked at. This is LMMS. This one has a similar workflow to FL Studio, which makes it easy to program music with virtual instruments and use virtual effects. You can bring in third-party effects and instruments. The big limitation of this program is that you can't record audio into it. You can, however, record audio in another program, then bring it into LMMS through a sampler, but if you just want to start making music with virtual instruments like drums and synths or whatever else, this program can be excellent for you, and it's a decent alternative to FL Studio. Now this next one is very similar to LMMS. This is the Stargate DAW. If creating music with virtual instruments and audio samples is what you're looking to do, then this one might be for you. It's pretty easy to use once you get used to the simple user interface. Programming MIDI in the piano roll is extremely easy, and putting together your songs is easy too. So like LMMS, there's no internal audio recording, but you can bring in audio samples and things you recorded outside of the program, and I actually think that it's easier to put together a drum pattern from drum samples in this one. But unlike LMMS, you can't bring in any third-party instruments or effects. However, it does come with a decent suite of instruments and effects, so you may not need those anyway. This next one has been around for a very long time, and it pairs very well with the previous two that we looked at. This is Audacity. And this one is all about working with audio. There's no MIDI capabilities in Audacity. So if you're only working with audio and you have no need for MIDI, maybe this one's for you. Or maybe you just want to quickly record an audio track or two and bring it into another program. You can do that with Audacity. It's one of the easiest programs to get started with in terms of recording, and there are quite a few people that use this as their main DAW because they like the ease of recording. Another fairly easy DAW to get into is Magic's Music Maker Free. And this includes some great virtual instruments and effects, along with a decent guitar amp simulator called Vandal SE. You also get one sound pool, which is like a big loop pack that includes loops that work very well together. You can record and edit MIDI or audio, but you do have an 8-track limitation, and you can't add any third-party effects to Magic's Music Maker Free. You'll need to upgrade to the premium version for that. But for beginners, it can be a great DAW to start out with. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that any music that you create using the sound pools, you can't monetize. You're free to post your music online everywhere, but you aren't allowed to sell it unless you purchase a commercial license for that sound pool, and typically those go for $12. But if you're just using the included virtual instruments and anything that you record into it, you're fine to sell your music. It's only the sound pools that are the concern. Alright, here's another free digital audio workstation with no limitations. This one is SoundBridge. It has a nice, sleek, modern workflow to it that can have you making music quickly. SoundBridge does include some decent effects and probably the best free drum machine plugin out there, and this includes several drum kits with it so you can start making beats right away. Another thing to note with this one is that it's available in 32-bit or 64-bit options, so if you're looking for a 32-bit DAW, SoundBridge might be the choice for you. This next one is mainly focused on beat creating, but it can be used for other genres of music as well. This is Akai MPC Beats. If you're familiar with the hardware Akai MPC, this one gives you a similar workflow, but because this is in the software world, it means that editing can be a little easier, in my opinion. MPC Beats is very easy to use. You can record audio into it, but you only get 2 audio tracks per project. For instrument tracks, you can have up to 8 in a project, so a total of 10 tracks per project, which can be quite a few for beat creation. It does include some nice drum kits and other instruments, but you can also bring in your own VST instruments into it as well. Plus, MPC Beats includes over 80 quality effects plugins, and just like instruments, you can also bring in your own third-party VST effects. The next one is very similar to MPC Beats. This is Serato Studio. This is fairly straightforward beat-making software for beginners, DJs, and even advanced users. Its simple interface makes it quick and easy to make beats in. You get a selection of pre-made drum patterns to help inspire you, and of course you can edit them and come up with your own in the easy-to-use step sequencer. You also get a selection of drum loops, drum kits, instruments, and effects. There are some limitations in the free version, like you can only have 1 audio track, 4 decks, and 4 scenes, but you can still create great beats and do DJ edits with these limitations. Also in the free version, you can only export to MP3, but you get some great tutorials with it and everything you need to get started. I've got a couple of bonuses coming up in just a bit, but before I get into those, I want to give you a tip on selecting the right program for you. So what you'll want to do is grab 2 or 3 from the ones that I mentioned and give each one a good test drive. If there's one that really stands out and just feels really good to you, stick with that one and learn it. If there isn't one that stands out to you, give another 2 or 3 a try and see if one of those will work. You don't have to love or even like the first 2 or 3 that you try. It may take some time to find the one that really grooves with you. Now let's check out those bonuses, and the first one is the Reaper DAW. Now, the reason why this one is a bonus is because it isn't free. It's extremely affordable at just $60, but if you want to get started with Reaper and you're low on funds, you can download the 60-day demo and continue using it fully unlocked even after the 60 days are up. You'll just get a little 5-second pop-up when you first open up the program, and it reminds you to purchase a license, but you can close that down and continue using it. Having said that, if you do end up using Reaper full-time and you love it, please purchase a license from them. It will help them to continue with their DAW development. So what you get with Reaper is a completely unlimited DAW with an insane amount of effects included, but there's no virtual instruments. However, you can bring in your own virtual instruments anyway, so it doesn't matter. The workflow of Reaper isn't the fastest, but it isn't terrible, and you can customize things to suit your needs. There's a lot of themes out there that can really make this thing your own. Reaper is an excellent DAW, so give it a try. Next up is Ableton Live Lite. This one is free, but it's bundleware, meaning that you get it free with an audio interface or a MIDI controller that you purchase, plus some other things. It actually gets included with quite a bit of hardware, so chances are you're going to get this one at some point if you don't already have it. With Ableton Live Lite, you get the exact same workflow as the full version of Ableton Live, but you can only use up to 8 tracks and 2 buses. Now, I did 2 videos where I made entire songs in Ableton Live Lite, and working within that 8-track limitation is possible, and it helps to keep you focused on the important stuff. You do get some instruments and effects with this free version of Ableton Live Lite, and they're great starters, but you can also bring in your own third-party plugins as well. And once you find that DAW that you like and you start getting into it, you may want to add some third-party plugins. So click the video on the screen for a huge list of free VST plugins that you can grab right now. And if you liked this video that you're watching right now, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating. Fist bump. Thumbs up.
Double thumbs up.
And one from over here. Well, no, 2 from over here, sure. Yep, another
Oh,
really good stuff. And again,
he mentioned a couple of new ones in there that I wasn't familiar with.
exactly. It looked like a nice, good overall where there's just so many of them and good shots of them in action, so you can see what's actually going on there. And some are a blast from the past, you know, like Audacity. I know I used at one point. You know, Cubase we talked about, a bunch of different ones that we've used over the years. The Cakewalk I remember when it was first around in the '90s as well, but that was you know, quite some time ago, and I wasn't really doing music seriously at that point. So I had it and, you know, had checked it out a little bit, but didn't really have a use for it at that time. But that changed. Now it's mostly Cakewalk, but I do have Studio One as well, just because that came with the boards that we have, the Personas boards. Fist bump, thumbs up.
I didn't blip. It didn't blip. Thank you, Elon.
Okay, if you'd been talking right there, you for sure would have blipped.
Well, I was wondering when he was going to mention Reaper, because he really waited towards the end and made it a bonus suggestion. I can see why he did. You know, they just really started charging for it, you know, this year. But like he said, after the 60-day trial, you're just dealing with a nag screen, and the price on Reaper compared to the other ones and what you get, that is the highest in my consideration list right now for any DAW that I might go to. The most compelling thing about Reaper, you can use it on Mac, you can use it on Windows, you can use it on Linux. Very few DAWs can say that. Matter of fact, I can't think of any other DAW that can say that.
Yeah, I would mostly be using it from Windows anyway, but it is good for it to be flexible, and it enables collaboration with people who are on other platforms like that in that way.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I mean, you know, when you're collaborating with people, you can't control which operating systems they're working on.
Yep. But you can find a way. Even if it's, okay, I'm going to record to this and then go out to that and record it here and then send it over to you this way, and then you can grab it.
And you end up pushing stems instead of source files.
Instead of mailing cassette tapes to each other the way people used to do.
So that was some good insight. Ago. That was some good insight into you know, your selections in 2023 for DAWs. I'd gotten a chance to check out that MPK Akai editor last night with Johnny. Johnny Fernandez is playing around with that one, so starting to learn that one now.
And
but it is
what it is.
It is more designed for beats. You know, it is more of a beat making DAW.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Now we did have, after going through the EQ stuff and after going through some DAW stuff, we had one for a mixer. Did you want to go into that one next?
Yeah, this mixer is interesting. It comes with some very cool new features and unique features in some cases. Plus, it is a true multi-channel, multi-track mixer. You know, the next mixer I get, I want each channel to be able to record into my DAW. And a lot of the digital mixers that you buy, the USB ones, they're not multi-channel recorders. They'll usually just record two channels at a time, a left-right stereo, and you got to record a track, then record your next track. You got to do them one at a time. With these multi-channel mixers, you can record each track separately into your DAW at the same time, which is much more powerful when you're trying to record, say, a band.
Even at a rehearsal, like, you know, we have at each of the studios that I usually work at, we have everybody's set up, you know, individually. So the drum kit's got, you know, eight mics on it or whatever. And then you've got each of the other instruments has, you know, their own mic going on, plus the vocals in the room. And even if the vocals are just there for people to get ideas out, like, you know, it might not be finalized vocals. There's going to be room noise and all that because we are just playing in a room together. So rather than having that as like the final vocals that'll be in there, they're just kind of there as a, you know, as a template. So that, and you can also get, you know, if you're working on a new song, somebody can be like, okay, and then we go to the bridge now, you know, you can get that kind of stuff captured as well. And then, you know, you're not going to use that in the final song, of course, but this is just in rehearsal, getting things down. But having them separate tracks like that means that if everybody in the band did perfect and like one piece messed up in one spot, otherwise it would have been a perfect take, you can just take that one spot and fix it. I mean, that's
Just
one of those things.
replace that. Yeah, replace that one take.
Exactly. But if everything was all a sum signal, like you're saying, then it would be something where, that would be very difficult to try to just fix a little piece like that.
Yeah, and what's interesting with this one is that it's a Boss mixer, which I had no idea that like Boss was getting into the mixing game.
Mhm.
But if this is the approach they're taking, they're going in a good direction. They're kind of competing with Zoom. Looking at the specs and the features,
Mhm.
they've got the same kind of feature set that the Zoom mixers have. They support multi-channel. They
Mhm.
come with their, if you're familiar with Boss, they have awesome effects. So like their effects engine is built into this mixer.
Mhm.
And it's got some unique features when it comes to podcasting. This really is a great mixer for anybody who's looking to, get an all-in-one mixer for podcasting and music and mixing it all together.
Mhm.
This one has a lot of potential.
Nice. So this
And
would be
a touch screen.
and a touchscreen. So this
Yeah.
video is the only mixer you need, the Boss Gigcaster 8.
Picture this scene. You're setting up for a gig, you've got your mixer with you, you've got your guitar effects, your vocal effects, and you think to yourself, oh, I want to live stream this as well. Plus I want to record it in a really high quality. That could possibly mean more equipment, more cables, more setup time, and more faff. So for the next gig, you start Googling around and you look at things like podcasting mixers, separate recorders, live streaming equipment. You suddenly go down the rabbit hole of what gamers use, but actually what you want to do is plug in, hit record, hit live stream, and play your gig the way you normally would. Now, as of recording this, there are loads of mixers that have come out, but no mixer has been really designed for musicians, with effects, a way to record every track, and also double up as an audio interface for your DAW. That is, until now. Forget every other mixer that's out there. This is what you need. This is the Boss Gigcaster 8. That's right, Boss. Boss have made a USB mixer, but it's so much more than that. Inside this little bad boy is the effects from the GT range and also the effects from the VE range. So that's guitar effects and vocal effects from Boss inside this mixer. But it doesn't stop there. It has 4 combi jacks and an aux in at the bottom. It has 4 headphone outputs, 4 independent headphone controls. You can see there's actually more than 4 faders, and that's because we've got a way to connect your phone, Bluetooth, USB input, and these 8 pads that can actually by default generate sounds, therefore it has its own fader, or you can reprogram these, so you could actually tell it to turn on effects, or if you're live streaming, you can even tell it to change the camera in things like OBS with MIDI control. And as soon as you go into one of the channels, everything's touchscreen. So you've got complete control over every single channel. And for the guitarists out there, the first channel here says 1/guitar, and there's an input at the bottom, which is channel 1. You can plug your guitar straight in there without having to go through the back. The other beauty of this, it comes with its own power adapter, but you can actually run it on USB power, which is what I'm doing right now. In terms of sound quality, if you know Boss from the past couple of years, the engine in here is 32-bit. You can even plug in a foot controller to control the effects. It also works as a 20-in, 14-out USB audio interface via USB Type-C, and there's even a dedicated app for the Mac and the PC as well. And the last, but by no means least, is it records to SD card at 32-bit float, 48 kilohertz. By the way, that's every single track. There's loads of USB new style mixers out there in the market, but they're all geared to podcasting, which is fine, and you can still do that with this. But this is aimed at musicians who want to gig and live stream and record all at the same time. So, should we take a look? Okay. So welcome to the desk. The audio you're listening to right now is the camera microphone, and we're going to switch over to this microphone now. Let me take you through a quick whirlwind of what this does. So as you can see, I'm in input number 2, and it's bouncing up and down here on this touchscreen. The 4 inputs are combi jacks on the back, but input number 1 is also mirrored at the front just here, where this little guitar sign is. Plug in a guitar or bass, acoustic or electric, and you'll get access to the flagship GT amps and effects. Now you can do that on any of the inputs technically, but it's a nice little touch to have one at the front. As you can see, I'm actually recording right now, so I've got an SD card in the back, and I hit record just before I hit record on the camera, so we've actually got the timestamp at the top there, and that's going to fleet around as I edit this video. To the on switch here, we've got the record, and above that is mark. So if I want to mark a chapter, I can click it, and then I can review each chapter in turn. We'll get to the touchscreen in a minute, but we've got the 4 headphone jacks. Again, headphone number 1 is actually at the front, and then headphone outputs 2, 3, and 4 are on the back. So you'll see here, this says 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you've got USB, then you've got a phone symbol, Bluetooth, the pads, and this is the master. Now the pads come preloaded with sounds, and there's different banks of sounds as well. But you can change that by plugging it into a computer and loading them in via the software. But just to show you, we can actually pull this up. Now some of them, when you press them, they play and they just play as a one shot, or some of them you have to hold down like that, and then it will actually play as well. Now you can change these over for the guitar effects or the vocal effects. So if I press this button, these now change over, so you can go up and down different effects for different channels, which makes it really, really easy. So right now, if I actually go onto channel 2, which is what I'm on right now, we can change the effect on channel 2 just by going up and down, and you may hear a difference obviously as I go up and down each one. This is real quick because it means if I press effects, that's channel 1, that's channel 2, that's channel 3, and that's channel 4. And you can see that because it's blue, orange, green, and purple, and this is blue, orange, green, and purple. But if I change this and turn effects off, it becomes the audio pads again. Now when you go into every single channel, you can change what it does. So let's go into channel 1. You can see here we've got input, EQ, effects, and general. So first of all, the input. Now this one is set to guitar, but you can have it as microphone, or you can stereo 1 and 2 together. You can even have it as headset or just off. So with the headset option, if you've got a set of headphones that have got a headset, you can plug that in there, maybe for gaming or for a podcast. INT mic is these 2 mics here, the stereo mics. Underneath is EQ, so we've got different EQs, and you can actually scroll through and just get to the EQ for every single channel. Then you've got effects. So there's guitar effects, as said, from the GT. There's vocal effects from the VE range. So we've got guitar patches. Now it's not switched on at the moment. I can switch that patch on if I want to. And then if you go into it, you've either got user patches. So we've got up to 200 different user patches. And then you've got the presets that come from the GT range. We've got everything from basses, you've got echoes, you've got delays, you've even got synth noises, you've got acoustic modeling, and there's 100 guitar and bass effects to choose from. Now, even though you've picked a guitar input, what can happen is you can go to effects, you can tap here, and you can say, well, actually, I want to put a singing effect on the guitar, or want a talk effect, or want a console effect. You've got up to 30 different singing effects with up to 200 user patches for singing, and then there's 30 presets for just talking or voice, and then again 200 user presets. Finally, you've got the console, so what you can do is you can actually change it how you want and add things and really, really dial in the sound that you want. Now, why are there so many different user presets? Well, imagine just skipping to the next one. It could be 1 per song for each channel, and that's really powerful. Remember, you can change these presets by pressing these buttons with the effects, or you can use it through external foot switches or MIDI through USB. So if you're on OBS, for example, and you change something, it can instantly change here without you pressing a thing. The really nice part is actually all the extra bits that you don't really think of. Things like, how do I get my phone in there? So there is a dedicated phone jack at the bottom, and then you've got that as a dedicated fader right here. And again, every single channel, even though you've got 4 audio channels, you've got the USB, the phone, and the Bluetooth. They've all got the same kind of inputs, but with slight variations. For example, if you go to the phone, you've actually got plug-in power as opposed to things like 48-volt phantom power, which we've got on here. The USB is just straight USB in, and then the Bluetooth you can actually then pair, and I've actually got it paired to my phone right now, and you can control the gain of it here. So imagine you're doing 2 45-minute sets live and you just want to play some music in the background, we can actually use that straight away. The touchscreen's default is this mixer window, which is fantastic with 0 dB at the top, but actually the gain level is plus 70 dB, which is a fantastic range, and this is the advantage of 32-bit float. At the very, very top, you can see, as I said before, we're actually recording right now, so you can hear the audio coming through. But on the left-hand side, we've got a tuner. You've got the time and the date, which is stamped. And also on the right-hand side, we've got the SD card, and then obviously how many hours or minutes you've got left remaining, and playback. and then you've got the main menu here. So let me give you a scenario. Right now, as I'm doing this right now, I'm talking to you, I've got the mic going in on channel 2. We might use the pads and have some sounds played, maybe a jingle, and I'm going to be doing a live stream. Alternatively, if you're actually doing something actually live and you're gigging live, then of course you can plug everything in the back. We've got 4 physical inputs, and we've got 4 inputs for the pads, the Bluetooth, the mobile phone, and the USB. At the bottom here, we've got muting and soloing, and that's soloing for headphones. And of course, we've got the mix for 4 headphones, so you can change that as you see fit. So let me show you a couple of vocal effects, both for talking and for singing. So let's just switch this on. So this is a light enhance, as you can hear right now. Let's go to a double effect. Oh, that's in my headphones. That's really weird. Let's go to this one, which is bright comp. We've got one there, which is bottom, so it's really deep. Hello, hello, hello. This is a radio effect, and you can have this on any channel, no problem at all. And we can turn it on or off. So what we can do is, instead of me actually touching the screen and scrolling through, what you can actually do is you can press effects on here. This is on channel 2, so we can actually very quickly go through all the different effects, and you can change it how you want. Weird 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, hello, hello. 1, 2. Hello, hello. Bum, 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 bum.
1, 2, this is
Yeah, so this is straight out of the 70s. Hi. And then we've got megaphone, there we go. And then you've got, that's our 30 for singing. I can go through these really quickly. There we go. So let's go for bright enhance. How's that? How's that sounding? That sound okay? And then we can go in here and we can change what this is. We obviously switch it on as opposed to off. And then we can change these. We can go into each one of these and turn them on and off individually. So we've got these on. Let's turn that one as well. What? And you can go into it and you can actually change what it is. You could say, well, I need this in user number 10 because I'm going to put this on my song. This is the 10th song in your set list. And then you've got it right there. So that was the talking ones. Let's go over to the singing ones. Whoa, whoa, da 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 da. Always have to check the beatboxing one out. Hello, hello, hello. Ooh. Ooh. Bum 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 bum. Dee 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 dee. La 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 la. You can pick what key it's in, or the key can actually come from somewhere else. Okay, so where this gets really interesting is when you grab a guitar. So I've plugged it in at the bottom here. It's on channel 1. This is channel 1 here. So let's bring that in. Now, I haven't tuned the guitar yet, so I'm going to use the tuner right now. I can tell it it's on channel 1. I can tell it to mute channel 1 as well, but I haven't, so... Nice graphical representation of where you need to be. And there we go, nice and simple. And a nice thing with any of the inputs is it shows you like an optimal peak. No problem. And of course our main out is here. So if you're going out to a PA or you're going out to the USB, it comes out of here. And if I give this a click, it goes straight to output. Let's click channel 1, which is also on the back if you want it to be another vocal or you wanted to plug things in by the back as opposed to plugging it in at the front. So you could plug in a stereo keyboard and you could change that to say, instead of being channel 1, it could be channel 1 and 2, and then this one will actually go to sleep and it's just this one that you're controlling. And we've got our own EQ for it, so we could turn that on. But then we've also got the effects. Now a lot of these are for electric guitar, but some do suit acoustic guitar as well. What's really nice as well is the mixer actually shows you the output post. You can change that, but it's really nice to see that it's actually louder than my voice right now, so we could turn it down a bit. And if we have the effects button tapped on, so we can do this right now, if at the moment, because that's off and it's not blue, these are the actual sounds from the pads. But if I turn that on, I can can go through the individual sounds for each one. So I've got the effects for this one, the effects for this one, which is channel 2, without looking at the touchscreen. Of course, I can go into that and we can have a look at it. Even an acoustic simulate here, but obviously I think that's meant to be if you're plugging in an electric guitar. Nice, 12-string.
Babe, I know it's so far away. Something that I have to say.
I'm not a lead guitarist, but there are some sounds there for you. Now we're back on the Rode microphone on the camera because I want to talk about the recording, so we're not recording at the moment. So if we just tap this button, it'll start recording. And there's the recording, so now you should be able to hear that coming through because we're recording this session. So we don't need to put it into like a digital audio workstation, but I can. However, if I'm at a live gig, I can just hit record, start playing a song, and when you get to the end of that song, we can hit this button, and this is the mark button. So what that's done is just put a little marker on the recording and then you can carry on with your next song. If I actually press this once, it pauses the recording and then you can then pause it maybe while you're doing a live set or you're changing your guitar over or you're changing the effects and you can hit record again and now we're recording again. So we can actually then carry on with our next song. If we hold this down, it'll stop. And you can see the time goes away and that's it, the recording's done. If we go into the SD card, which is just here, so you can see right now I'm just recording a stereo recording. So it's just the stereo feed out that you'd get from the PA, but you can change it to actually record in different ways. So at the moment it's got 91 hours left on a 128 gig card. So if I was to do it where we're doing direct, it's only got 10 hours. If I was to record it with a pre-fade or post-fade, it's basically about 10 hours worth of recording on a 128 gig card, which is insane. If we go to playback, it shows you the last file. So this was the last file we just recorded, and you can see there's a tiny little marker there. If you want to see all the files, just tap the little file and it shows you all the files that you've recorded. If you hit play, it's going to play it back and you can hear it through the headphones if you want to. So I've got the headphones here, so I press play to stop, and if you just go to next, it's going to jump to that tiny little flag there, which is the next mark point. This is really handy, certainly if you're doing like a 45-minute set or an hour set or 2-hour set, and you want to mark each song. As opposed to just looking at the waveform, you can just skip to the next marker. Now the other option you can see here is format and backup. If you don't want to take the SD card out, you can plug the USB into the computer, hit backup, and then what it'll do is it'll actually take the waveforms straight into the computer. Really nice and simple, just plug it in. The last part I want to show you is actually the app that you can download for PC and Mac, and I have the actual Gigcaster recording right now as well as it being on the app, so I want to show you this. So it shows you all the different mixers, and then you've got the pads, so we can actually see what the pads are doing. So if we click on a pad, it tells you what WAV it is. You can change it here and it'll upload it to the Gigcaster. You've got foot controls and what you're going to do with the foot controls, and also the setup as well. And these lovely dials, really, really nice and easy to sort out. So I can actually say, well, let's have a look at the LCD brightness. Let's bring it down. You can see it's actually going down here as I control it. And this is still recording the audio right now, and it's completely in control. It's absolutely fine. fine. And then we've got the mixer, we've got the effects, and all the effects that are there. So you can obviously then go into them and start playing with them. So we can have a look at the EQ, we can have a look at the effects here. So you can completely customize how this is. What I really like is this bit, which is the library. So you can have a live set and you can drag them in and then have them in the order that you want to. You've got editor and you've got librarian for each one for basically guitar, sing, and talk. So you can actually put them in the order you want, and then you've got it ready for your set. Then you've also got the tuner as well, and you've actually got the tuner here. You notice it just changed straight over, but you can see it on the computer. So maybe if you've got a computer on stage and this is maybe off to one side, that's really, really handy, and you can actually use it right there. And then you've got the full menu, whether you want to back stuff up, what the time is, and the owner's manual, everything's right there. What's really cool is obviously being able to change things over for things like each individual input, and then we can change the EQ, we can add the effects, what it's going to be, and then if I wanted to, I can obviously control it either here on the computer, or I can control it actually on the Gigcaster itself. This is incredibly handy if you're doing things like live streaming. You want to make sure you're getting the right audio going into the computer, or you want to use this for your DAW, where it is a 20 in, 14 out audio interface in itself, which is 32-bit float, and you can make sure the right channels from the inputs are going into the right channels of your DAW. So what do you think? I've said this before, certainly for musicians who are creating content, if you've got excellent video but crap audio, people aren't going to listen to it, they're going to leave. Whereas if you've got okay video but excellent audio, they'll stay and listen to it. And that's what's really important. I personally have been looking for a way to up my game with my live streams, for bringing external sounds in, and I was genuinely looking at other manufacturers, but there was always something missing. I don't have the GT Core 1000, and I'd need to find vocal effects on my computer if I was live streaming, but even in a live environment, this thing can just handle it all. Now the downside for bigger bands is it has 4 combi jacks. Now you could group things in, but for solos, duos, and even trios, this actually will work for you. It depends on how many inputs you need, and remember you've got the OGs in as well, so you could double that up if you've got like a stereo keyboard as opposed to a phone. Now yes, the price tag is on the higher side for any kind of normal mixer, but look at what this thing can do compared to a normal mixer. You can mix, you can sing with vocal effects, you can play with guitar effects, you can record, you can use it as a DAW, you can live stream, you can monitor everything through headphones, and it's all in one box as the ultimate music mixing workstation, and at an audio quality that is really, really high. So this actually covers quite a lot of different genres. Yes, you've got podcasters, you've got live streamers, but I'm always thinking from a live gig environment. And it means I can get rid of a couple of different things, and the output of this can go to my phone, and I can live stream and get really good quality audio. But at the same time, let's say you do a gig and it's just the best gig you've ever had, and then you pull the audio down from a normal live stream and the audio sucks. It's been compressed, it's got frames missing, the quality went halfway through the gig, you got a bad signal. This is recording at the same time. You've even got the mark button to mark it through, so after every song you can just press the mark button and then you can go through it later on and pull that audio from the SD card, and it's the highest quality you've got. Now I'd like to thank Boss for actually sending this out to me, and I'm going to make a couple more videos about this in certain scenarios. So what I want from you is comments. I want you to ask me loads of questions about this, and I'm going to gather those questions up and we'll make videos about it together. That way you get the answer you want, and I can really show you how this can actually work in your favor. Now Boss are known for their amps and for their loopers, and now with an awesome mixer. But the other product they brought out earlier this year of 2023 is this. This is the Boss FS1WL. It's a Bluetooth pedal that can do multiple things. And if you want to see the videos I've made about that, they're right here.
Oh, damn, he just teased me with that Bluetooth pedal at the end.
I saw 3 buttons on there, and that's what you want. You want 3 pedals, right?
You know, that would look nice and simple, but Bluetooth pedal, interesting. That's a useful way to use Bluetooth.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking they could use it as a page turner if you were sitting there, doing sheet music. You could have it page turn for your iPad, but I think the main idea is that you can just use it to activate a lot of the features that you would normally do. So it's like having the stomp boxes down there where you can go from your regular tone to your lead tone to whatever.
Yeah. Oh, we will
Changing
have
things
to
up.
check. We will have to check that one out in the future. What a great review. John Paul
Absolutely.
Music UK at John Paul Music UK on YouTube.
Mhm.
Awesome review. I mean,
Yeah.
he covered when I feel like I want to buy something, you did good. Like I'd like to see the price tag go down a little bit, or it for the. I was looking at it, and for the channels, like at this price, I'd want to see twice as many channels. But if Boss can really like smooth it out and get this into the 300-400 range,
Do they have a
it's
related product down below, like as far
it's
as
a
a
hefty competitor.
larger or
That's a
smaller
good
mixer?
question.
Sometimes they'll have one that's like, oh yeah,
Oh,
that was
well,
the 8, and then here's the
yeah,
16, or here's the
yeah,
4. Or
yeah.
whatever.
They've got the Gigcaster 5, so I'm assuming that would be yeah, a baby version of it, 2 channels instead of 4.
What's the
And
back look like for the inputs? Just 2 probably. So it's more like the Mackie.
yeah, they basically cut it in half, but they didn't cut the price in half. So, at 479, I would end up stretching that little extra to get to the double the
But then
channels
from
and
the 8, like the question like
features.
you're asking is if there's an 8 to a 16 jump as well. That would be the question, as far as needing more jacks. But then you are getting into the big boy board prices as well. So
Yeah, if they're going for 700 on the 8 channel, then the 16 would be closer to the $1,000 range, and at that point, I'd be looking at the PreSonus, honestly. Once you're starting to spend that kind of money, you start looking at the big boy toys, and this has the big boy toys features. I mean, the touchscreen is what got my attention in the first place. I was like, you play with that board that you do with Mike and have a touchscreen. I'm like, I want a mixer with a touchscreen.
yeah. Plus the one that we use, they also just do a lot from the iPad. So having the ability to externally control these things is also important.
And I thought about it like I'd like to see the knobs, old school, like to have knobs and things I can touch, but at the same time, they cram so much more into the touchscreen for functionality
Oh yeah.
and still keep the price down. So I got to give Boss credit here. They are coming into the mixer market with a good product.
One thing about the knobs is that knobs are also just additional points of failure. So having knobs on the top for something that you're going to be lugging to gigs and back, there is the extra chance of breakage, where this seems to be pretty straightforward in terms of it's just the faders on the front, which even those I would almost prefer to see the faders just be a little touch strip where you just touch it where you want it to be and it like lights up there, for example, rather than it being a physical chunk that moves up and down. But that's just me. I mean, we're moving away even further from physical knobs and sliders, faders, just
Yeah,
because
this is a nice
once they go down,
balance.
they're bad.
This is a nice balance between touch for some control, and the sliders is going to be the last thing, like before we totally go digital and everything's on a screen. Mixers and engineers, the sliders will be there as long as people are willing to pay for them.
Yep. And the faders on the Studio Live that we use, the Personas, those are motorized faders, so you can hit a button for the Mardi Gras and they all go, whoa, they'll do the wave
Well,
and
yeah,
everything.
and that's
Something this
just
small
it.
is never going to
Like
have that, for sure.
if I do have faders these days or knobs, I want them to snap to whatever the current song and project is. That's important. You do your mix on the screen. You want your mixer to remember and bring that back up. Motorized faders, I demand them.
Well, then go check out PreSonus. But then again, you're getting into the higher price points at that point again, even on the smaller mixers. Not that the small ones are small. This looks kind of similar again. Size wise, this is almost similar to the size of my Mackie 4-channel, but the Mackie 4-channel has the 2 combo jacks.
Yeah,
Channel
it
1 and 2.
reminds me of the small Mackies. They really crammed a lot into a little space, and I mean, look at the plug-in options. I love that they put 4 headphones. The ability, you got a built-in headphone splitter and smartly designed. The first one's in the front. That's the one that you're going to be using by default, but nice to have those 3 additional headphones in the back. That's ready for a small band.
Yeah. And I'm even thinking just that, at a jam session / practice session or whatever, you could just take that And, from each person, you get one thing. So if somebody's on an electric drum kit, for example, you can just take that one output. And then, you got your bass, you got your guitar, and you got your vocal. You're not getting multiples. Like, you can't have everybody's vocal and everybody's instrument for a 4-piece band. But if you just wanted to get the instruments mixed in, you could just do that all right here real quick. And then, like you were saying, the person who's doing the mixing, like, they use the front headphone jack and the other 3 use the back ones, and dial everything in, and you're good to go.
Oh, that's where they added the SD.
Yeah, right there.
I wasn't even aware that this had its own recording functionality. That was actually gravy. I was like, oh, this is a cool mixer. I could see using it for these things. Having that built-in recorder, perfect for like an on the road live gig, and you don't want to bring a PC, you just want to capture the sound. You can record for a long time on those SD cards.
Oh, yeah. You're saying, I think 10 hours with everything turned on 128 gig. Sure. And that's the thing, is where a lot of it comes down
at
to.
48.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's USB-C, that anything you're buying these days, if it looks like you're getting a good deal on a USB 2 audio device, you might not be. You really want today's audio equipment, you really want it to be USB-C. The bandwidth, the capabilities that come with USB-C really open up the audio interface. That's why this thing can do so much without even blinking.
Yeah. And again, one of the things to look at is, what software comes with anything that you're going to be buying at a price point like this is essentially taking over the cost of your DAW as well, because they're going to give you, like they're saying, they're going to give you something to work with this. If you're buying a Personas, you're getting Studio One, whichever piece of hardware you're buying at a price point like this, they're going to give you some kind of software to work with it.
Yeah, I like the software that he was showing that comes with this Smart for Boss. I'd rather set up my gear and set up those pads and what I want over on the computer screen, get it ready, and then take it on the road, and it's good to go.
Yep.
But I don't want to sit there on the little screen and click and go in, drill in just to like do basic tasks. It's nice to be able to do that over on the computer side.
Yeah.
But
Good
that
stuff.
that does look like a fantastic choice for serious musicians who might also be podcasters and want something that complements both worlds there.
And as you mentioned, just the guitar effects and the vocal effects and the pads, using being able to use the pads as a soundboard essentially, all of that are just bonuses. So I think it all adds up to quite a lot of value in the thing. And again, we're not sponsored by them. They didn't send us one to check out, but we'd love it if they'd like to. If they'd like to, I will for sure put it through its paces.
I'd like to be able to thank Boss for hooking me up with some of that too. John, you got to let me know the secret.
Yes, good stuff. Good stuff.
But he clearly has some connections. I mean, when you look at his videos, like I said, I was perusing this all day.
Yep.
He'll be back as depending on what we're looking at for any given week. He's got stuff everywhere. He does some great. Oh, there's the Bluetooth one.
Yep. The pedals. Definitely good info there.
At John Paul Music UK. Check him out.
Very cool. And Boss, again, the guitar effects, the vocal effects, all that in there. It's definitely a lot of stuff in the box, and it looks like, again, minimizing the physical failure points as much as possible while keeping still the faders. So definitely a good overall package.
And considering the price, one thing that actually makes me more compelled for it, the guitar and the vocal effects that you get with it, these are the same Boss effects that you could buy multiple stomp boxes. You would spend at least half the cost of this just to get those effects by themselves.
Yep. Or even just one of the small units, kind of like the Line 6 one that I had from a long time ago, the floor pod. There's things like that where it's just a combo pedal where it has all the different effects in there, and this is basically it's all already built into here. So you got all that and the same idea for voice all built in already. So I do like that, especially for something as somebody's small studio at home, or using it for a gig, or having the ability to bring it out to if you were going out to an open jam or something, you could theoretically run a small 1, 2, 3 piece, like you were saying, off of it.
Yeah, that definitely looks like a good gig mixer. I wish he'd mentioned more about the durability, but Boss, they're usually pretty good about building solid equipment.
Yeah.
But the real test is throwing it around the stage.
Yeah. And if anybody's throwing my mixer around, we got problems.
Well, if anybody out there has one of these and is throwing it around on the stage, let us know.
Yeah. Let us
It
know how
looks
it works out.
tough.
Yeah. And it should be. Very cool.
So
No.
that's our gear tease for the week.
Yeah.
But now we're going to shift over to some science because
Right.
we've been looking at some acoustic science the last couple weeks, and we're always talking about it in the back.
Mhm.
And that those 10 experiments that we looked at last week, the sound experiments, and
Yeah.
how they could get dust to like turn into a picture basically just with the acoustics. It got me curious, what's doing this? How does this work?
It comes down to the interference patterns. A lot of times, the constructive interference or destructive interference, like when it comes to the sand, like you have the sand spread on that shake plate, and as you hit that certain frequency, it's all about when the waves come together and they're both making a big wave, it's pushing the sand out of the way, and when there's a valley in between two waves where there's a dead spot, that's where they settle. So those lines are showing you where in that pattern. Everywhere the sand's getting pushed away from is parts where the wave's big, and then the other spots are where it's small. And you can see the pattern in the plate. And when you change the frequencies, it just immediately switches to the others because they're reacting and they're all so small that they all get pushed very easily.
And that vibration comes with power. There's power in them vibrations.
They just have that. Yeah, the table is just shaking at a very high frequency in terms like it's just a plate. That if you have it at 8,000, or at some point they went up to beyond even human hearing, like 10,000, 20,000, they were cranking it way up. But as they kept going, you would find new patterns that would keep emerging and being just completely unexpected because one would be very intricate left and right patterns, one would be just diagonal stuff. They really don't seem to follow any particular pattern, but it's all patterns and they're all beautiful and it's very cool.
Well,
acoustics.
We're gonna look into this harmonic resonance and what it can do. And I love those science channels on YouTube, and this was another one where I was like, oh my God, such a cool find. I love my job.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And I was looking at like it's not so much about music on his channel. He really is the scientist. Like
Getting
I
into the
eat
physics
this.
behind the acoustics. Yeah.
Yeah, I eat this stuff up, and he's got a great channel dealing with like all sorts of sciences, and he's got a great way of explaining it. He helped me to understand what standing waves and harmonics really are all about. In 5 minutes.
Yes, indeed. All right. So this is standing waves and harmonics.
Professor Dave here. Let's discuss standing waves.
He knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave explains.
Waves in the ocean can travel a great distance, just like sound waves, but some are confined to a specific region, like if you shake a taut rope with one end fixed in space. Waves will travel down this rope and then back again, reflected at the boundary. Some waves are confined between two fixed boundaries, like on a plucked string, where they will experience repeated reflections at both ends of the string, resulting in a multitude of wave cycles traveling in both directions. If this vibration is of a particular frequency, it will produce an interference pattern that appears to be a completely stationary wave. These are called transverse standing waves. These kinds of waves can only have particular frequencies for strings of a given length, because they can only have integer numbers of half wavelengths, since the waves must return to zero amplitude at both boundaries. If the number of half wavelengths was not an integer, the wave couldn't exist. This means that the number of half wavelengths in any standing wave must be quantized, meaning it can only exhibit certain discrete values, such as the set of integers, rather than any value from a continuous spectrum. And this idea of quantization will be an important one when we get to the modern physics course. Standing waves contain nodes, where there is destructive interference and an amplitude of 0, as well as antinodes, where the amplitude is at a maximum. The string will be completely stationary at the nodes, and the other sections, if vibrating rapidly enough, will appear to the human eye to create loops, and more nodes means more energy. Two-dimensional standing waves also exist, which manifest on a flat two-dimensional surface, like a drumhead, rather than a one-dimensional string. On a one-dimensional string, the nodes are points, but on a two-dimensional surface, the nodes are lines and curves. These can be radial nodes, which are circles of a particular radius, and angular nodes, which are lines at particular angles. These nodes can be visualized if we place sand on a vibrating surface. The sand gets pushed over to the nodes by the vibrations, and this helps us visualize the two-dimensional standing wave. A three-dimensional standing wave would have two-dimensional planes as nodes, but we will have to use our imaginations for that. One interesting thing about standing waves is that they combine to produce all of the consonant intervals in music that sound good to our ears. If we consider this half wavelength to be the first harmonic with a frequency of F1, then doubling this frequency to 2F1 will produce a standing wave with one full wavelength and will give us the second harmonic, which in music would be perceived as an octave. Tripling the original frequency to 3F1 will give us the third harmonic, which in music is called a fifth. This will continue to give the rest of the consonant intervals. So the reason that certain combinations of notes sound pleasant is no random matter. It is rooted in the harmonics of standing waves. This concept of standing waves also represents our first encounter with quantization, given that each harmonic has an integer number of half wavelengths, and quantization will be a very important concept in the modern physics course. As we will later see, standing waves are at the heart of a number of quantum phenomena that seem to completely defy logic, such as the quantization of energy of an electron. But we aren't quite there yet, so let's check comprehension. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.
Oh man,
and
nobody
we
told
are
me there was going to be a quiz.
subscribed.
Nobody
Yeah,
said there
I
was
didn't
gonna
know
be a quiz.
either. I cheated off of Glenn. I was
No, I
looking
got them all
over
right.
here. I
I
figured you
love it.
would.
Yeah. Physics is one of my favorites, and this particular demonstration when he's talking about the standing waves reminds me of in my high school physics class. She had a spring. The teacher had a spring attached to like by the door of the classroom that was so long. It was like 20-foot long spring that was only like 2 inches around. So it's a small spring, but it's really really long. And she was trying to do the standing waves to demonstrate. So she's just do like a jump rope up and down. Okay, there's your half amplitude, and then try to do the standing wave. And she couldn't get like to the third one even. So I'm like, here, let me, so I get up there and I'm able to show like up to 7. So there's like 7 standing waves in this one, just going one by one. Like here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, and just like working our way up and just getting it so you can really visualize the standing waves. That was always a fun experiment. And in one time we took it out to the one hallway, Sunshine Hallway, was like a long hallway that, you know, obviously had a lot of sunshine. But we would just like hang out in that hallway and take that spray and just like send one down. And you're just like, and you'd watch the wave go like all the way down and back. It was pretty cool. I always like the spray experiments.
And it's cool watching sound in action like that.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah,
And
and
then,
the quantizing he was talking about, you know, I always associated quantizing with MIDI, but it is a natural thing.
absolutely. And there are a lot of things that deal with quantization like that, especially in physics, whether it's, you know, in the very small, especially in quantum world and in music and in, you know, a lot of different things.
Well, with
Quantization,
all our
transition of light and everything.
with all our science talk that we're constantly doing, we are going to be visiting Professor Dave for some answers in the future.
Absolutely.
He's got answers on everything.
Yep. And I'll be checking it out too. He's new to me. I'll bring you some other science folks that I definitely see some pages.
Oh,
on.
I think Uni recognized him.
Oh yeah, absolutely did. Before we even started the video, he saw it from the thumbnail. Very good. Now I was going to suggest for the next one, we should probably get into the mind-blowing concept in music, the Harmonic Series. Yeah.
Oh,
just
yeah,
because that kind of ties into the same idea that we were just looking at.
Yeah, exactly. When I was looking at that, like I saw Andrew and I was like, I know that dude. We've been checking him out. He really does have like he's a musical savant, half deaf, amazingly, you know, same challenges that Ange had at like overcoming, and he's an incredible musician, music scholar, sound scholar, and Harmonic Series. That was a new term for me.
Yep, and that's one of the ones again in the acoustics and physics, and you know how it relates to music and why, like, you know, the I think the video that I watched at one point was called "Why These Notes," and I don't remember if it was by him or if it was one referenced by him.
I remember the video.
But that was getting into the whole, you know, when we start looking at the Harmonic Series and seeing why, you know, you go from this one's going to be an octave, the next one's going to be a fifth, and as you go through, you're finding all of the notes that we use in Western music. So it was very cool. So to me, that was like a mind-blowing one. Like, you know, that makes so much sense why we decided on, you know, breaking it down this way. But you know,
well, it might not have. It's not so much we decided on. We went for what matches, what works.
Absolutely. But I was meant in terms of like the 24 scale music instead of 12, like we're using, and also things like fretless. When you're using a fretless instrument, then all of a sudden you're no longer constrained. You can be hitting all those in between tones all the time. But ideally, you know, for our styles of music, we're hitting those 12 notes, or sometimes only 5, getting into the pentatonics.
Hey, if you can hit 5, you're not doing bad.
Exactly. So let's check this one out on the mind-blowing concept of music, the Harmonic Series.
Mind-blowing. Blow my mind, Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew Huang. Today's video is about the #1 most mind-blowing thing I've ever learned about music. It's absolutely fundamental to how sound works and why we like the music we like, but a lot of people never learn about it. Even people like me, growing up in a musical family, learning lots of different instruments, studying music theory, I never even encountered this concept until I was 18 and went to university for music. What we're talking about is the Harmonic Series. Have a listen. The pitches in this series occur in nature, they're completely consistent, and they're quietly audible almost anytime you hear a musical note. So every note is actually a whole bunch of tiny notes put together, with one exception that we'll also take a look at. I guess it's really notable. Note! Whenever you play a note, you'll be hearing a mix of these higher, quieter notes along with it, which we call harmonics or overtones. And I should clarify that it's not necessarily the exact pitches you heard in our example. The harmonics are all going to be relative to whatever note you're playing, and there's a very simple pattern behind that. Basically, every time you play a note, you're also going to be hearing a little bit of the frequency that's twice as fast, and a little bit of the frequency that's 3 times as fast, and the one that's 4 times as fast, 5 times as fast, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times. All of the integer multiples of that original note's frequency, theoretically to infinity, but in reality, only the first handful are really audible. So let's take a look at this bass guitar. The whole length of this string is vibrating, and that's what determines what note we hear, but it's also simultaneously vibrating in other modes. Here's a little diagram to illustrate. So you've got the main loudest note that you hear, the fundamental, and that is vibrating the whole length of the string. So if you picture this string wobbling back and forth, that wave is traveling all the way down the length of the string and all the way back. What we're also hearing, quieter, is the integer multiples of that wave. So we're hearing the wave that's twice as fast, and we're hearing the wave that's 3 times as fast, and so on. The same kind of thing happens in wind instruments where it's a certain length column of air that's resonating. So these additional waves are the harmonics, and depending on your instrument, on its design, on its shape and size, also on the way that you play it, the volume of these different harmonics can be quite different. That's why plucking a string towards its end sounds different than plucking it closer towards the middle. By plucking it in different places, the additional modes of vibration, the harmonics, may be strengthened or weakened. That's also why 2 different instruments playing the exact same note can sound completely different. The main note that they're playing, the lowest one, the fundamental, is actually completely identical, and it's just the mixture of harmonics that give each instrument its own unique character. So for example, check this out. I've got a clarinet and a guitar both playing an F here. Very easy to tell which is which, even though they're playing these tiny little notes. Let's check them out in a spectrum analyzer. Firstly, I hope you're noticing all the harmonics showing up. There are all these distinct points above the main note. There are more and more of them, and they get closer together as you go higher, but also once you get past a certain point, they start to tail off. Notice that with the guitar sound, a lot of the lower harmonics are stronger than in the clarinet. Actually, the guitar's first harmonic, no wait, it's first overtone. The fundamental counts as a harmonic, and that's the one difference between the terms harmonic and overtone. The guitar's first overtone, technically the second harmonic, is stronger than the fundamental, it looks like. But now let's see what happens if I put a brick wall EQ curve there and start sweeping down. Now both of them sound basically identical. We're just hearing that pure fundamental F tone. If your mind isn't blown yet, I don't know what to tell you. You're difficult to impress, or you already knew about this, and why are you watching? Now here's an interesting thing. Overtones don't have their own overtones. Unlike the fundamental, they are pure tones without their own harmonic series. They'll sound kind of like our guitar and clarinet did when we filtered all of the harmonics away down to just the fundamental. It's a very simple, dull, plain tone. A tone that has no harmonics is a sine wave. Therefore, all harmonics are sine waves. Now what the f is a sine wave? A sine wave is the purest tone possible. It truly is just a single pitch. It's one perfect wave visualized amazingly in this video about Fourier analysis by Smarter Every Day.
If we were to turn this circle on and watch it go up and down and up and down and trace that motion out, you get what's called a sine wave.
Fascinating video. I highly recommend it if you want to understand more about waveforms and how they interact. So if we have a musical note and we strip away all the overtones and are just left with the fundamental, that is a sine wave. We've also learned that overtones don't have overtones themselves because they're all also sine waves. So that means that any consistent pitch played on any instrument can be recreated just with the right combination of sine waves. Once again, let's quickly hop back into Ableton here. I've got the operator synth open, which is an FM synth, but it also lets you do what's called additive synthesis, which is adding sine waves together. So let's play a C, and it's just gonna do a sine wave here. Now what operator lets you do here in this kind of graph looking area is add individually any of the first 64 harmonics. So I'm gonna hold down this note and then I'll add the first few overtones and you can hear what that sounds like. Now here's an interesting phenomenon. The first bunch of harmonics make up a major chord, and so when you add them one by one like that, it sounds like you're making a chord. But if I now play a scale with this sound where all the harmonics are moving along with each note, you don't really notice it anymore. It sounds like an individual note with some overtones. Let's try again, just adding harmonics at random and making a really weird dissonant chord. Like, that doesn't seem to sound good when you're just listening to the sine waves individually being added on. But if you, again, play a melody with it, it just sounds like a synth with a particular timbre. So using different combinations of harmonics is one way that, through synthesis, we can approximate real-world instruments. That's like kind of trumpety, obviously would need a bit more work, but you can hear the beginnings of that. What if we have very few lower harmonics and then add a bunch of higher ones? Get a really buzzy sound. Do some other stuff at random. So these can be the starting points for so many different timbres, which you can then further shape with other filtering or envelopes, affecting how things change over time, affecting how the volume changes. Mind blown. If I'm blowing your mind right now, please leave a comment, because I just remember when I learned about this as a little baby student and my brain was on the floor. There are, of course, plenty of things that don't vibrate at a consistent pitch. So the sounds that they make don't invoke the Harmonic series. And with any real-world object, there will be imperfections that may contaminate the Harmonic series. So for instance, that's why old guitar strings sound worse than new ones. When they're worn or damaged in different places, it means the string can't vibrate perfectly symmetrically, and so instead of getting the pure Harmonic series, the sound will be a little bit noisier. I hope you're still with me, because we've only covered the first reason why the Harmonic series is so mind-blowing. So musical notes are just collections of interacting sine waves. Doesn't matter what instrument you're playing, if it's a pitched instrument, it's a complex sine wave generator. It might also be making some other sounds, like for instance on a guitar, before the note actually sounds, you'll probably have a bit of the click or the scrape of the pick against the string. Those are inharmonic sounds, and all those little details add to the unique character of any given instrument. But the second mind-blowing thing about the Harmonic series is that it's the foundation of all the chords and scales that we use. It's the reason why certain notes sound good together. It wasn't just that someone back in the day decided on a scale that they liked and we all agreed to it and are using it out of habit. It's that the physical laws of the universe determined what these note relationships would be. Long before music existed, long before humans even existed, any resonant body vibrating at a consistent frequency would also include harmonics, would include those integer multiples of that base frequency. Let's have a listen to the series again. As you can hear and see in this notation, the pitches of the Harmonic series correspond with the notes and intervals used in the vast majority of music. If this low C is our fundamental, then the first overtone, the vibration that's twice as fast as that, is this C an octave up. And then the vibration that's 3 times as fast as that is the G above that. 4 times faster is another C, 5 times faster is an E, and so on. So first we're going up by an octave, and then from that note we're going up by a 5th, from there up by a 4th, then a major third, a minor third, another minor third, and then switching clefs here, we go up a major second, major second, major second. So for instance, if we play a C, look at how many C overtones we have. If we play an E with a C, well, there's a bunch of E's in the overtone series on C. And then in the overtone series on E, there's gonna be all those E octaves. So you've got a lot of alignment that sounds good to us. And the reason why these intervals sound good together is because our ears are doing math. An octave is 2 notes vibrating at a 2-to-1 ratio. The next simplest whole number ratio is a perfect fifth, 3-to-2. A perfect fourth is a 4-to-3 ratio. Notes sound consonant. They sound nicely harmonized to us when the math is the easiest. Not only that, but when 2 notes related by this series are played together, they will share a lot of overlapping overtones. Now there is just one little wrench to throw in the equation. Let's get this diagram back up. Do you see these numbers across the top? Those represent how many cents sharp or flat the notes underneath them are compared to equal temperament. That's why some of the notes were colored. The bluer they are, the flatter they are, the redder they are, the sharper they are. Now let me be clear, harmonics occur naturally and they sound like that example we've been playing throughout this video. What this diagram is showing is notes that are slightly out of tune compared to a human-made tuning system called equal temperament. What we found is that if we transposed the most audible harmonics, the first 30 or so overtones, into one octave, they would correspond pretty closely to 12 equally spaced divisions of that octave. Closely, but not perfectly. When you tune everything to 12 perfect divisions of an octave, that's equal temperament, and it's what most of the music you hear nowadays will be tuned to. The reason for this is consistency. With overtones, every note that isn't an octave of the fundamental is slightly out of tune compared to its equal temperament counterpart. That means that once you start making even slightly complex music, if you're tuned to the perfect ratios of the Harmonic Series, then some of your intervals will be out of tune with each other. For instance, let's look at the first major thirds that occur in the Harmonic Series on C. We have a C to an E here, so the fourth and fifth harmonics, a 5:4 ratio. The C is perfectly in tune because it's an octave of the fundamental. The E, though, is 14 cents flat compared to what it would be in equal temperament. Let's have a listen to the subtle difference between these two thirds. The next major third is this B flat going to this D. Now this B flat, which is a perfect 7:1 ratio going to our C fundamental, is already 31 cents flatter than an equal temperament B flat. So if we want a pure 5:4 ratio major third up from this B flat, it should be a D that is 14 cents even flatter than this. So a D that is 45 cents flat. But this D, which is a perfect 9:1 ratio from our fundamental, is 4 cents sharp. So look what's happening with these ratios. On our first major third, this C and E, we have a 5:4 ratio. The B flat to the D is a 9:7 ratio. It's similar, but it's slightly off. If it were 10:8, of course, it would be perfect because that's an exact doubling of 5:4. And as you can see here on our 8th and 10th harmonics, we again have that C and E. So if you were writing a piece that went from a C major chord to a B flat major chord, you would have two different sounding major thirds there. You'd also have a completely different interval moving the whole tone from the B flat to the C, where the first note is 31 cents flat, than you would moving from the C to the D, also a whole tone, but the second note is 4 cents sharp. Equal temperament divides the octave equally so that every whole tone is the same as every other whole tone. Any given major third is the same spacing as any other major third. It's a tuning system of compromise so that every possible interval or chord change in any key sounds equally in tune, or depending on how you want to look at it, equally out of tune. And now that I've made this video, I realize why so many music programs probably skip over it, because it just opens so many cans of worms. Now I feel like I gotta explain how much we're culturally trained to hear equal temperament, how live musicians often naturally make adjustments to get certain notes closer to just intonation. It's the reason why very professional, highly trained choirs will still sometimes end up a little sharper or flatter than where they started. It's why tuning a guitar's B string is so annoying. That major third, man. You should definitely look more into all this if it's piqued your interest, but at any rate, I hope now you know, if you didn't already, why music is the way that it is. Love to hear your comments, subscribe and turn on notifications to keep up with my music content, and I'll see you next time.
That's what happened to my brain cells.
Explosions.
Isn't it so much, it makes so much more sense to me when literally makes sense when I see the pattern and the jump.
Yeah, and that's also one of the things about just intonation would also get you to where playing in the key of C, for example, would sound different than playing in the key of B flat. And like each of them would have their own unique kind of flavor. And that's why there were some that sounded totally dissonant or almost like unusable back when they were, doing things in that way. But once they went equal temperament, then everything's a little bit, works out better. But back then, each key that you would play in would have a specific sound, even beyond what we hear today, as a different sound for each one. They would sound different, and this one would be different with like a sharp in the middle. And this one would be different because it's kind of flat in the middle. So each one would have weird sounds to it. So I'm kind of glad that we're where we are now, because everything does kind of sound the way it should when we're
It's
playing it
stabilized.
together.
And
So we
Kevin
mentioned
was
the,
wondering why he chose to use the low C
Yeah.
on the example.
Yeah, for that actually, it's for the sheet music. Or I mean, my guess is that for that first note is going to be an
Oh, the
octave below
staff
where it starts
display.
going up. Yeah, because you're going for that first note, and then you're going up an
He
octave,
chose
and
it
then a
for
half, and then one more.
visual. He chose
Yeah.
it for visual. See, Kev, Glenn.
Yeah, the question is, I mean,
we
if you're
can't
asking why,
ask Andrew, but we have a Glenn.
Yeah, and in general, C as a choice for a keyboard is a good choice, just because you're dealing with all the white notes. So either C major or A minor, depending which you're talking about at the time. But yeah, I'm not surprised by the C. And again, C being the center of the difference between the treble clef and the bass clef. So when we're looking at written music, also C is like that nice middle point.
Yeah, he was using the staffs for his example, so you gotta try to find a way to fit into it without adding a zillion little lines under.
We actually talked about the intonation a little bit last week, about how to check and adjust the intonation on the guitar to get it going. Because sometimes there are guitars that you could get where the neck is just a little bit off, so you can't really get the intonation perfect. But for most guitars that I've looked at, you can really make improvements to what it is already, and a lot of it just comes down to the measurements. Like some of the first tips that they give in the one video we looked at is measuring, which a lot of people are not going to get a tape measure anywhere near their guitar. But if you just measure and look at the actual scale length that you're looking at, and then look at the recommendations, the manufacturer recommendations for that style of guitar, what the actual scale length is, you could be off by a bunch and not realize it. So, starting from there and then working with the intonation, checking the tuning, and making sure that you're, whatever note you have exactly, tuned perfectly at the open, it should be tuned perfectly at the 12 as well. And then just checking to make sure, things aren't terribly far out all the way up and down.
Looking at the chat, Uni's trying to figure out how to play with hooves, and Snave, middle C, probably the most important note of all, at least for me.
Yep, middle C for you.
Well, yeah, in piano, it's kind of like the first note you need to understand all the other ones on both sides.
Yep, and that's where your thumbs kind of come together. Thumbs coming together at middle C, and then until you get to more advanced stuff, your right hand's dealing with everything to the right, and your left hand's dealing with everything to the left. Of course, you can bring both hands up high or down low, and of course, you can cross over. Even some people will play, low parts with the right hand and high parts with the left hand. That's where if somebody's not, if they can't do bass lines bounce very well with their left hand, they could actually reach over and do it with the right hand, and then just do little chord blocks with the left on the top. It's a little bit awkward to have your hands crossed like that, but it could work.
I want to do it like Mozart with my hands crossed, flip behind me.
That's actually easier, because your right hand is in the right place, and because of the way it crosses over, just like that, your right hand is still on the top side of the keyboard, and your left hand is still on the bottom side. The only trick there is that you're not seeing the keys, so you just have to be able to feel where that C chord is.
Plus, if you can pull it off, you look cool as hell.
You gotta nail the dismount though. I think the idea is you take the piano bench and you go a long way, like T away from the piano, so that you can kind of like lay all the way back on the and do that action. But also, you got to know what you're playing. So if you don't do that first and then go, okay, now what am I going to play?
Gonna end up breaking my neck.
Exactly. Playing some random stuff.
That was Andrew Hong. He is now like a long time favorite for me, because I think every week since we found his site, somehow every topic we have, he's talked about it.
Oh yeah, and we have a few guys like that, and there's others that have some videos that we should include here that we didn't manage to get into this week's, but we'll definitely hit all these topics again as well.
Oh, we're
still
trucking
have time for several
along.
more. Oh yeah, we still have time for several more. We're not out of here yet. We just got to blow your brains a little bit more before we get out of here.
And we've got some interesting choices here. It's almost like a conspiracy or theory night, like different form, because you have a lot of people who say certain tunings, like me with 432 and the whole 440 thing. And as I was looking for this stuff, I get these little teaser recommendations on the side. I'm like, I think one was on the 528
the magic frequency,
and I that moment, I was like, okay, now we're going up to 528. And the explanation I was getting was that it aligns both with audio and light. There's a there's a there's a connection between that frequency when it comes to light and when it comes to audio.
Mhm. And it's not about turning an A440 into A528. It's just about the frequency 528, which is not an A
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, if the frequencies, mind blown. Thank you,
Yeah.
Andrew. He
Exactly.
wasn't lying. Like, he
Yeah.
gave you the disclaimer in the title.
Mhm. One thing that I always found interesting, you talk about 432 and 440, and when we talk about the differences there, you got your 440, you start cutting it in half to see how low you can get to be at an integer still, as we talked about. So you got 440, 220, 110, 55. So once you're at 55, you can't go any lower. Now, if you were to do the 432 tuning, you got 432, 216, 108, 54.
It
Now you can
goes.
get all the way down to 27. So you can actually get way lower. My low B on my bass, the 5-string bass, that low B, that's around 30 and a half hertz. So that 27 hertz, that's getting you down even lower than my low B, but that's about as low as you're going to hear things. So you can get all the
Yeah,
way down there with a fundamental
you,
frequency.
you can get to that precision, but you might not be able to hear it. A dog might, or a certain kind of animal, but
Now, if you were to
we
take that,
lose it down there.
if you take that same 8 hertz that we shifted, instead of going 440 down to 432, but you go 440 up to 448. And now if you start cutting it in half, you go 448, 224, 112, 56, 28, 14, 7. You can get all the way down to 7. And then
See, I'm
you're going to
surprised
hear
they
7.
didn't. Surprised the music industry didn't want to push towards 448. I mean, they kind of dictated the 440 tuning. Like, that was just a convenience of the music industries trying to come up with the standard in the early 20th century, and 440 was what they settled on.
Mhm.
But a lot of people fought in both sides.
And now this one is 528, but slightly
It's
different
like a
topic than
civil war of audio. But
that's the thing is, they had to come up with standards at that point, and they figured that would be one way to do it. They didn't go with Betamax, right?
yeah, technically, I guess 432 was the Betamax.
Yeah, but we still use it, so it's still around, so that's good. We have several people that we work with who exclusively work in 432. Like, they're always tuned that way.
For certain things, and if I wasn't forking these for a mass audience, truth be told, I'd probably work in 432 more than not.
Yeah, but like my keyboard's probably 440. Should be 440 because
Yeah,
that's what it'll sound right when my guitar or my bass are properly tuned. It'll sound the same when I'm on one or the other. So I keep it that way just for consistency on what I'm working on. But I'm not opposed to retuning anything for a project, which I've done before on all of them.
well, and the keyboard defaults to 440 when it starts up. If I want to go into 432, I got to go into my settings and just turn it, and good to go.
Yep.
But
you're not going to go to
when I make
528.
it when I make it forkable and I get like 8-10 people who are like wondering about the key, and if they're trying to add like a guitar track or something and they're not tuned to 432, it sounds like a honky tonk sound.
But I know that you do put good lengthy descriptions on your tracks, so it's in there.
Oh,
It
I
says
always
432,
put the tuning. I always
but
put.
doesn't mean they read it. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
how come on this song I can't, blah blah blah. It's like, well, if it says it there, it's 432. That's the answer to your question.
Well, I ended up compromising. I defaulted back to the first year. I almost went like a whole year straight 432, and I went back to 440 when it just became a reoccurring problem. Guitarists were having a hard time. They weren't picking it up, and it just seemed easier to do it all in 440.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily what sounds the best to my ears, but it is the easiest for making collaborative projects.
Yeah, you won't have somebody complaining about, hey, this is too sharp. Because
I actually 2 weeks ago, Lisa Gomez, she was like, "Is your keyboard off? It sounds."
You're probably used to your 432 stuff.
And that one actually got it. I had done a version 2 of it, and I copied and pasted and forgot to check the tuning. it had gotten marked as 440, so she picked up on it. She got an ear.
Nice. Good stuff. So this one would be the 528 frequency. Which page is this from?
This is from Be Inspired. Another cool channel, not necessarily about music as much as everything, but you know me. Like, I want to be inspired.
Yep. And we're talking about frequencies and all that. So let's see. This is what their page looks like here.
Yeah, Be Inspired channel
Mm-hmm.
at YouTube.
All right. And this is the video, the 528 hertz frequency.
Five to 8 hertz frequency has been determined to be nearly the precise center of the entire electromagnetic color spectrum. There's only one number in the entire numbering system whereby the electromagnetic color spectrum is the same as the sound system. That one number is 528. Both the same in color and sound. 528 hertz frequency.
A miraculous key that opened doors that no man can close and closed doors that no man can open. 528. It will change your life in the most beneficial way. And now we have substantive evidence, massive amounts of evidence that is what 528 is. Ultimately, what has happened with this planet is that we are in dissonance to another note, another frequency. It turned out that when we discovered the original musical scale, there was not just 6, but a total of 9 core creative frequencies to the universe. That is, everything in the universe is made from 9 notes, only 9. And that the first 6 are the solfeggio, and then there's 3 additional ones that form a perfect circle of sound. And that perfect circle of sound looks something like this. If you graph it. So the first 6 notes, 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, 852, was the original solfeggio scale. The 528 that you can see on my left in green is the color green. It's the heart of the rainbow. That's the miracle note from the original solfeggio note, from the original solfeggio scale. And the other note that you see, 741, which is part of nature, is called the devil's interval in musicology. That when you play 741 with 528, it creates such an annoying and dissonant energy, diseasing, stressful, that if you continue to listen to it, you could die. And so that the concept here is interesting. In the world today, we have people who are controlling virtually everything economically, geopolitically. Their agenda has been population manipulation, population control for millennia. They have held the secret knowledge, the ancient music, by which the pyramids were constructed based on the math. All of the universe is constructed according to these 9 tones. They knew about them. In fact, they instituted. In fact, it was the Rockefeller Foundation in 1939 that instituted the world's standard tuning. The Western world tunes to a 440 hertz frequency. That when you tune your instrument to that, the F sharp note is 741. Precisely.
The A440 is what now is the standard tuning. If you go A439, you're closer to one of the creator's tones. If you go A441, you're closer to one of the creator's original tones. That's how precisely it has been manipulated. To do what? To shut down the 95% of your brain, particularly the right brain that operates the heart mind for the divine human community. Here is a metaphor so that you begin to understand what we're talking about. When you go drive in your car and you're channeling the radio is tuned to a station and you're grooving to the music. You love that music. As you get farther and farther away from the broadcasting tower, that music gets static. You start to lose the signal from the clear channel, broadcast, and it gets staticky. When it gets staticky, you get a little annoyed. But you want to listen to it. You really have a heart for that music, so you continue to listen to it for another 10, 15 miles, and suddenly it becomes so annoying that you just get disgusted. You go, ah, and you shut it off. And if you continue to listen to it, you get sick. That's what we're talking about here. Except you don't even know that you've been listening to the static your whole life. You don't even know what the true resonant frequency is because it has been kept from you. So in other words, the master composer, master conductor of the Universal Orchestra is singing love songs in 5/2/8, uplifting everything simultaneously. And we're the only species out of tune and accepting static for the clear channel. Dr. Masaru Emoto. He goes up on stage and he has a triangular, a musical triangle that he hits, like in an orchestra. He's hitting it over here. He hits it, bing, and about 30 yards or 30 feet away is his interpreter standing here with the same exact replica of that same size triangle. Frequency tuned to the same frequency. And he tells his interpreter to put a microphone next to it. And suddenly this one starts to resonate. He hits that one over there. This one starts resonating. How much of your body is full of water? They used to say when I was at Harvard School of Public Health, the truth was back then about 86%, 86% of your body, well hydrated, was water. Today they tell us it's only 75%. Hogwash, they've been dehydrating everybody with the poisons. 93% of the function of DNA is light and sound reception and transmission. Photon, reception, transmission for intercellular communication and cellular upregulation. You know what cellular upregulation means? It means precipitation in the now, every millisecond, instant second, you're remanifesting right now in water. Water is the most energy conductive of all of the materials. It's a superconductor. Let me give you the fundamental, the rudimentary origin of the numbers. Here it is. The most important numbers, 3, 6s, and 9s. Again, Tesla, who created a Tesla coil. Tesla coils, energy amplifiers. Your DNA is an energy amplifier, a coil, operating by the 3, 6s, and 9s primarily. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you've probably looked at engines or motors, magnets that have been wound with copper wire. When you do that, when you wind the copper, coil the copper around the magnet, it enhances the energy dramatically. That's what your DNA is. It's an antenna to the Creator. Every single cell of your body has this energy capability. It has this divine intelligence. What does that mean? That means the first entities that you should be communing with in order to uplift yourself, sustain yourself, heal yourself, is the billions of cells in your body that have its own unique genetic intelligence, its own sacred spiral to the Creator. And so this is the structure of the way that the universe operates, which does fabulous for us, our understanding of some of the most wonderful pieces of information to allow us to live a faithful life. A life according to the law, according to the matrix. Here is the simple way to analyze this. You've heard of what goes around comes around. You've heard of as you sow, so shall you reap. So this is explains it. Let's say that you're here and you are putting out negative thoughts, negative behaviors, negative actions. It's all energy. The neurology in your brain's powerful. 86% of you is God water. So now that's going out, and it goes out, and here's what happens. It goes out, it goes up and down. This is called the event horizon. You shoot down through the middle of the event horizon, which is the black hole, comes out and spins back around, ultimately comes right back, bringing to you karma, bringing to you divine judgment. It's all according to the mathematical matrix. It's certain, it doesn't lie, it's always consistent. There's nothing missing, nothing broken in it.
Whole lot of mind blowing going on.
Yeah, the solfeggio frequencies I've definitely looked at before. That's definitely some stuff that's interesting. Looking at where the frequencies lie on the spectrum, that's cool too. Where that green 528, that'd be an Angie number there.
And
Always a
you
friend
know,
of
I
green.
feel like that was an extension of Motivational Wednesday, because I found a lot of motivation in what he was saying there. I've felt that way at the micro there's certain things we can heal ourselves with, when it whether you call it a good diet or whether it's just mind over matter. There's certain things that we can actually fix in ourselves that way. And some of what he was talking about there was that.
Mhm.
At the frequency level, though, that shit blew my mind.
Yeah. One of the things I like looking into with those kinds of things is binaural frequencies, like listening to slightly different sounds in both ears. So, if this ear was listening to 440, for example, and this ear was listening to 432, you would actually hear an 8 hertz hum.
Yes, you would feel a little whoosh.
And that's where you can, technically hear, even very low frequency sounds just by having in them as the difference between the two sounds that you're listening to. Because it's like when you're trying to tune a guitar and you hear that warble, and you're actually trying intentionally to get that warble and get it to a certain frequency for you to be able to hear.
And that's why your ears are so good, because you go through that process of tuning and testing your ears like that. The more you do that, you're exercising your listening.
Yep, and you're getting used to it, and basically it's like muscle memory as well. Like just the more you hear, like when you're trying to tune a guitar, if I hear somebody like just strike a chord, like I can, a lot of people, they don't even bother to tune their guitars before they pick them up, and they'll just pick it up and start noodling, or they'll pick it up and just hit a chord, and as soon as they do, it's like I can hear that this one and this one are not in tune. It's like I can't tell you exactly how sharp or how flat they are, but I can tell you that something's not right in that chord that you just played.
You know it's just not right, which is
and that's why it's like, well, let's do the tune thing. Like, I always, like, one of the first things I do if I'm going to sit down at the studio, like, grab the bass and then go tune it up, or grab the guitar or whatever I'm doing. First step, tune it up, make sure we're good. And the problem I get a lot of times is one of the guys will just, he always just tunes it relative to itself. So he just, plays that open E string and then just tunes everything to that, or plays the open A string and tunes everything to that. But then as soon as I tune to the tuner and then play a note, like, we're not in tune with each other, because he started
that's the problem with the guitarist who tunes to himself and relative to that.
Yep. And that's where it all comes down to, if you're actually going to be doing the whole playing with other people, then you definitely want to have, you set a common framework, and that's where we can decide on 432, we can decide on 440, but we should pick one and stick with it.
The band always tuned my keyboards.
Yep.
Because it was the most consistently tuned instrument in the room.
Sure. And if you had horns in the room, like maybe you would tune to the horns or whatever, just,
In some cases, I've had to tune my keyboard to a horn to tune down to B flat, for a sax.
Sure. Now, that one you could just do with a transpose. Yeah, transpose down.
Yeah.
Play in C,
just not. I'm still playing in C.
A little bit of cheating. All right, Uni. Thanks for coming by, man, and thanks for being on.
Oh, awesome to see you, Uni.
I think we have another video or two before we're out of here for tonight. I know we had one that we skipped a little bit earlier, which was on the magic frequency. I don't remember which one that was. I think it's the first
the
one.
magic.
Yeah, that's probably the one. Which page was that from?
This is from Video Advice. Another new find. Mini documentaries about the hidden truths and unique videos. You know I eat this shit up.
I was definitely keen on that last one where we were talking about the frequencies and all, but then it definitely strayed into some other territory where it's like,
Well,
okay.
and as I was looking through all this, I mean, half the videos I found were saying how audio sound can be dangerous, like the devil's note. That could be a weapon in the wrong hands. And others were all about healing. There's a lot going on with musical healing theories these days. The 432 is just one of several healing approaches where they use audio and frequencies to deal with PTSD, holistic approaches
One
rather
of the
than
ones I saw
taking
for
pills.
one of the binaural beats videos that I'd watched had 432 in one ear and 528 in the other. So it was trying to take kind of both aspects, and then you're getting that the warble in the middle is that 96 hertz difference there. So it was kind of cool.
Wow, what does the brain do that in that
Well,
situation?
you're hearing what the note would be at 96 hertz. So let's say you took that, if you took a 440 down to 220 down to 110, you're getting down a little bit lower than that. So you're probably at a G or an A flat.
But when you do it specifically targeted to one side, like our ears do actually listen independently, but there's a strange synchronization between our ears. So when we are hearing things that are significantly different, there is that, like, I'm listening with my left, I'm listening with my right, I'm listening with there. That's what creates that effect.
Partially, and it's also like when you have an instrument that's not in tune, and you get that warble because you're playing two notes that are right next to each other. You can hear that, like that's kind of close, but again, no matter how far away they are, if you have just the one note in one ear and just the other note in the other ear, you'll hear a third tone that isn't being played anywhere, but it's the difference between those two notes. And it's usually, if they're close, then it's going to be such a low frequency, you're not going to really hear it as a hum, but you would hear it more as just a wah 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 kind of a sound.
So like if you took that sine wave that Andrew was talking about earlier, and you did it at one frequency on the left side, consistent, and did it at another, like a hearing test, but you're listening at these different frequencies, you're saying in the middle, your brain is creating another.
Your brain creates a third sound.
Interpretation.
Yep. And actually some of the ones, they use it for brain state entrainment. Like if you want to try to go to sleep, for example, there are videos. There's one I can show you that's, you put this on, you put the headphones on, and you're hearing, it'll basically go through it'll change the tones. So it's going to bring that frequency down lower and lower to try to get you down to, I believe, 4 hertz is what they're looking for delta state. Like, or each of the different sleep states has a frequency associated with it. So they try to use these binaural frequencies to kind of guide your brain down to those states. Sometimes it's for focus, sometimes it's for sleep. It depends on what you're trying to do. But it's an interesting theory.
Yes, you just gave me an interesting homework assignment on music and dream states. Again, it goes back to the like medicinal approach to it, where calming somebody with PTSD or putting somebody to sleep. I see this all over YouTube these days.
One thing I do see is that I see so many of, like when I started searching for, binaural beats, for example, and looking for certain things, I did notice that a lot of them have bold claims, let's say, of what these things can do. Like, oh, this will treat this and it'll cure you of that and it'll make you, a better person, this. And I mean, a lot of them have very bold claims, and that's not what I'm, not what I'm chasing. It's like when I'm looking at these things, I'm interested in the science of what's going on behind them. So I'm listening to it and I hear the effect. And the one of them was a 30-minute video that's a NASA power nap. That was one where it basically guides your brain down into, like, in a 30-minute period, it actually guides you down into what would be a nice, deep sleep kind of a pattern, and then brings you back out of it at the end. Or you can have one that's an 8-hour one. There's I can't keep headphones on for 8 hours, so that would never work for me. But just being able to put them on and meditate. Mine are. I mean, they're on 18 hours a day, but if I go to sleep, like I don't usually sleep on my back. So if I'm trying to sleep on my side with like headphones like these on, that's just not going to work. They would be too uncomfortable. Like the side of your head would have like dents in it from the headphones, or you break them or whatever.
No, they got to build them into your ears in the future.
Yep. So I'm interested to see what they say about the magic frequency here. And
Yeah, this is at Video Advice
Mhm.
over on YouTube.
yeah,
And this is going to revolutionize our future.
let's find out.
Now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. We try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. Because we believed there just had to be a better way. There had to be a better way. And we think we may have found it. I have here 2 identical tuning forks, both tuned to the note A, the note an orchestra tunes to. These forks are both made to vibrate 440 times per second. We say their frequency is 440 hertz. If I tap this fork, putting little pulses of energy into it, the second fork will also vibrate in sympathy. And if I silence this fork, we just may hear the other singing its tone. We say that I'm inducing a sympathetic resonant vibration in the second fork. It only works because both forks are tuned to the exact same frequency. Now, many of us have seen this very charming young man on the internet who shatters crystal glasses with his powerful voice. But if you watch him carefully, you'll see that first he taps the glass with his finger and listens. The glass sings its natural resonant pitch. Then he takes a deep breath and sings a loud, long note. He induces a resonant vibration in the crystal glass. The vibration grows larger and larger and larger until the glass is shattered. On the other end of the scale, we have a giant bridge made out of concrete and steel, a suspension bridge, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Cars and trucks and buses are going over it every day. And unfortunately, where they built this bridge, there was a steady wind blowing across it. And one day this wind induces a small vibration in the bridge, hardly noticeable. But the frequency of the vibration matches the resonant frequency of some part of the bridge. And the vibration gets larger and larger and larger until the bridge collapses into the river below. A destructive resonant frequency. So on one end of the scale, we have a giant concrete and steel bridge destroyed by resonance. And on the other, we have a small crystal glass shattered. So maybe we could shatter something even smaller, something really small, something you would need a microscope to see. Maybe we could shatter a living microorganism. So maybe we could change a biological living liquid crystal with a special electronic signal. But in order to do that, we would need some kind of device. So we search the US patent database, and we find this invention by a physician, Dr. James Bear of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's called a resonant frequency therapy device, and its purpose is to induce a resonant vibration in a living organism or cell. If I put in, say, 100 hertz, out will come 100 pulses per second. If I put in 200 hertz, we'll get 200 pulses. So now we're searching for the magic frequency. And we start with 100 hertz, and we look through the microscope to see if anything's happening. We watch for 5 minutes. Nothing happens. So we try 101 hertz. We look through the scope for 5 minutes, and nothing happens. So we try 102, 103, and so on. Over the course of 15 months, we try hundreds and hundreds of frequencies, if not thousands, until we find the magic combination. The answer is you have to have 2 input frequencies, one low, one high, and the higher frequency must be 11 times the lower. It's what we musicians would call the 11th harmonic. And when we add the 11th harmonic, we begin to shatter microorganisms like a crystal glass. These are the first videos taken. We showed these videos to our friends in the biology department. They said they hadn't seen anything quite like it. Seems to be a new phenomenon. These organisms are being shattered by our electronic signals. We now know that cancer is vulnerable between the frequencies of 100,000 hertz and 300,000 hertz. So now we attack leukemia cells. Leukemia cell number 1 tries to grow a copy of itself, but the new cell is shattered into dozens of fragments and scattered across the slide. Leukemia cell number 2 then hyperinflates and also dies. Leukemia cell number 3 then tries to make another cancer cell. The new cell is shattered and the original cell dies.
Ugh, I find so much inspiration in some of the shit we looked at tonight.
Definitely. A lot of good stuff about frequency and the power of harmonics and all that good
Well,
stuff,
and
whether it's music or whether it is other applications of sound.
look at the cancer research that he mentions
Mhm.
at the end there. I mean, it, it's incredible that they're taking these approaches now and seeing results like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now the question is, there's I had a question about that last thing he was talking about, the 11th harmonic. Like he says, the lower frequency is then 11 times higher. Technically, that would be the 10th harmonic. So I'm wondering if it's the 11th harmonic or 11 times. But either way, it sounds like it was a specific one, and then the other wouldn't do anything, or it wouldn't have any harmful effect to the rest of the tissue. That's the question that I would have, is that if the cancer cells are susceptible to a certain frequency, what about the healthy cells? Like, as long as
Well,
they're all
yes,
fine, then that's fine.
are there exactly? You don't want to solve one problem and cause another one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Otherwise, it's not a cure.
Yep.
It's a
And
detour.
that's also where killing cells in a dish, under a microscope is one thing, but having them, killing them in situ in the body, that's a whole nother story. But
But
at the same
it's
time,
promising that
yeah.
they're looking at these alternate approaches.
Mm-hmm.
Curing cancer has never been easy, and
Mm-hmm.
people go through a lot, not even to cure it, just so much as to stabilize it. This thought process might complement and not make that as bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing, is I think we're probably, let's see, do we have time for one more, or did we want to call it there?
Oh yeah, we actually ripped through a lot and still have some left over.
Always more in the tank. But I think we are just about hitting the that midnight hour.
Pumpkin time.
Pumpkin time. But again, covered some good topics tonight, and covered a bunch of different ground. I'm glad we covered like the DAW stuff and the mixer and all of that, and then definitely getting into some frequency stuff. That's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see how, this Cakewalk situation with Bandlab, how it
Mhm.
plays out. I
Yeah.
I'm actually not worried. I'm glad to see Bandlab really finding, you know, some commercial use out of their Cakewalk. I always wondered how they were going to keep going with it free. It's
Mm-hmm.
impossible to make a great program like that for free. So
Mm-hmm.
I think they're doing this to make sure that it can still be there. I have
One thing
hope
is,
for it.
don't say impossible, but you could say that nobody's done it yet, but we can't say it's impossible. Somebody could find a business model that works where they're just able to get people to just donate them money so they can just keep doing the free thing.
Well,
That's a possibility. It's just unlikely.
the best example of free and powerful OBS. OBS is a community. Yes, there are core writers and programmers, but it's a community of programmers. So there's always somebody there to continue to improve it.
Yeah, it's a good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, but covered a lot of ground. Again, I don't think we have a specific topic for next week, but we will figure it out.
Oh, it kind of forms itself based on our topics we talk about in the back.
Exactly. So we'll have to see how the conversations go over the next few days. We got a couple that I'll definitely get you some links for you on the side about that, the binaural beats, and get you started down that rabbit hole, because you'll find some interesting stuff down that path too.
Oh, and anything to do with musical healing and things like that, that I'm all about that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And until next time, this was Glenn and Tony from Talking Shh.
We did talk quietly.
We did. And we talked IT. So we will catch all you guys next time.
Night, everyone.
Ambient noise, yeah.
So now you're grabbing some Bandlab clips.
Now for me, that would also be something where I would use like volume automation and like bring that from the bottom, like bring it in and then bring it back out.
And these are the kinds of sounds you can scratch. With this AI, like scratching it actually can be cool.
Oh, that was perfect for the interlude too.
Ends it right in the right
I
spot.
didn't even notice. 40. I didn't even realize the texture faded out at the interlude until it happened. I'm like, wait a minute.
Sometimes you just, it was just meant to be that way.